Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. It is Friday, the 29th of April, our last broadcast for April, and it's 2022. My name is Kerry Holzman, and I'm getting a little earlier start because I see we have a lot of people waiting in the chat. And so here's a little special bonus material for you guys who have joined early. So thank you so much for eagerly anticipating the beginning of today's broadcast. And a shout out to Peter Laycock, who just contributed 50 pounds. Thank you again, Peter, for all of your continued support. I hope you're doing well. He says, good evening, Kerry, and everyone in the chat from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius. Madi OL also contributes $10. Plus, he made an earlier contribution via PayPal prior to the show beginning. So thank you also to Madi Yoel for his continued support and generosity of the channel. And he says, Kerry and chat, good day. Well, good day to both of you, Madi and Peter. Thank you guys so much for supporting what I'm doing here and supporting our community. I want to give you guys a few updates on some things before we get started. That's why I'm starting a little earlier today. The veteran giveaway computers. What I'm trying to do when I do the giveaway computers is I'm trying to find people within our own community, but more often than not, I'm seeing people nominating themselves who I've never seen before participate in the chat room. And well, that's not a requirement. It's certainly a preference if somebody that is participating in our chat room is also a military veteran in need of a computer. We certainly want to prioritize getting them one. And the reason this is a concern to me is I have selected 4 different winners. And the way that works is you would leave a comment in a YouTube video. YouTube has no direct messaging system, so all I can do is reply to your comment and ask you to email me. And nobody has responded. So that tells me these are not regular viewers, or they don't know the process. And you know, look, there's a good way to get regular viewers, right? It's a nice introduction to the channel. However, I may have to come up with yet another means to figure out how to properly identify people in our community versus people just randomly clicking on videos one day. They see it and they forget all that they've entered it, they forget to check back, or they don't know that they're supposed to check back. I mean, YouTube should be sending them an email anytime you leave a comment that gets replied to. You should see that in a YouTube email. So maybe they don't have YouTube set up correctly. I don't know. It's a little frustrating because I'd love to give them away. And everybody that I have responded to, every single one of those people I've never seen before. And yet none of those people have responded to my request to reach out to me. So we may make this null and void. I'll give them the weekend. If by Monday I haven't heard back from them, then I will find another way to give these computers away. Also, Ryan in Nevada sent another of the Dell 7020s. I should have it next week, and I'll put a solid state drive in it, update the BIOS, update and optimize Windows, and yet that'll be another, a 4th computer to give away, with the priority to be for military veterans, but also people in need. So depending on whether or not you're a member of the community, which means you participate in the chat, whether or not you're a military veteran, and of course your situation where it would be determined you would benefit the most would be the determining factor for how the winners are selected for these giveaways. I want to thank the folks again over at Acronis. They've got the 40% off coupon code. And Acronis is telling me many of you are not entering the coupon code correctly. I've got a video that walks you through step by step. There are no spaces in any coupon code I've ever seen in my life, but some of you out there are putting spaces in it. The coupon code is Kerry Holzman 2022. It is all one word. There are no spaces. So if you want to have a smooth transaction without having to contact customer service and figure out why you're not getting your discount, the same problem I've got with the giveaways is please follow the It's very specific instructions I give you and I demonstrate, and you should have the exact same experience that I've demonstrated, right? If you do it differently than me, then don't expect the same outcome. I really hope you guys take advantage of the offer. It's been over, I think it's been 1.5 years since we've had any offers with Acronis, and I can't tell you when it's going to happen again, so I would not procrastinate if I were you. It's a really, really good deal. Essentially $29.99 after the discount code, and that gives you a 1-year subscription to Acronis. Acronis is subscription only. Adobe is subscription only. Microsoft Office 365 is subscription only. Everything is moving to subscription only. So there may be some resistance to that. However, the technology is advancing so quickly. Like me personally, I would buy the new version of Acronis every year. The fact that I don't have to wait for my current version to expire to get the new version is a huge relief for me, that I can get the new version the day it's released while I have a subscription. And I don't think people understand the benefit to it. They only see the downside, which is an ongoing subscription. But you can cancel the subscription at any time, and you can use the coupon code if you're already a subscriber to Acronis. You can use our coupon code to extend your current subscription by another 12 months. So if your data is not worth $29.99, then, you know, I'm going to start asking people when they contact me in panics about what they can do to get their data back because their hard drive died or whatever it is that happened. I'm going to say, how much is your data worth to you? That's the very first question I'm going to ask from now on. And so if they tell me my data is priceless or my data is worth $100, I'm going to ask them, why did you not spend $30 to back it up? And I'm not going to help anybody with a data recovery problem until I have the answers to those two questions, because it's bothering me deeply that people seem to think that if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen ever. And that's pretty much what everybody thinks until it happens. So there's only so far I can go to educate people when people are unwilling to listen. It doesn't make any sense for me to continue to help people who don't listen. That's just a waste of my time. So I'll be very curious to hear in the future what those answers are. If you can imagine being on this side of things as a working computer technician, the panicked calls that I get regarding lost data, the crying on the telephone, the despair that I am suddenly a psychologist and have to calm people down, is nothing I ever signed up for to do. I would love to be the hero. I would love to save the day, but you've got to have a backup. I don't care if you know how to restore it. That doesn't matter to me. I can help you restore it. But chances are, if you make the backup, restoring it is going to be very easy for you to figure out. But this I can't be bothered or it's too complicated is no longer a valid excuse, and I will not help others who will not make an effort to help themselves. It's just too taxing on my emotions, and it's too taxing on the time requirement of repeating myself over and over and over again about data recovery processes, expenses, and risks. So I'll just put that out there right now. It's overwhelming, the number of people who ignore reality and then come to me for help when that bites them on the butt. And, you know, when I was first starting out, I will say that that didn't happen very often because not many people had computers and we didn't have that much data. But every year, as a species, we create more data with our computers than every year combined before. So the amount of data is just multiplying like crazy, and the number of people using computers is also higher than it's ever been in the history of mankind. And so when I started out, it was more of a niche job, back in the early 90s. Not that many people had computers, and if you had one, it was probably because you had a business reason for it. If you had one because you were a hobbyist, you weren't calling anybody to repair it. You were going to repair that yourself. The times have changed, and now people have computers that will almost bragging tell you how much they don't understand computers. It's almost like they boast about their ignorance, and yet when you try to help them and show them how easy it is, there's some people that just don't want to listen. They're just not interested, but they want you to be interested when they have a problem. So it's just too taxing on me. It's getting worse, and it's becoming really, really depressing. And I don't like to be the bearer of bad news. I don't want to tell somebody all their precious memories are gone forever unless they send their storage drive off to a data recovery place for thousands of dollars. It kills me to have to tell them that. So before it kills me entirely, I'm doing what I can for my own self-preservation. And that's why this deal with Acronis is so important to me, and I hope that you guys take advantage of it. All right, so I always like to give a little bit of insight on what happens behind the camera and what goes on when I'm not filming, what's going on in my business. And so, as you can probably imagine, some of that has happened recently. And as you can imagine, it's happened before and before and before. And after a while, it's just, I've had enough. So I hope you understand that position. It's a very different position when you're in business versus when you're a hobbyist. Generally, as a hobbyist, it's only family and friends that might call you for help. When you're in business, people are calling you, expecting you to be able to resolve their issue. But unfortunately, I don't do any sort of web design or database programming or data recovery. The field of computer tech, it's not just one thing. And so sometimes people call thinking, well, you're a computer tech, anything related to a computer, then you should know how to do that. And of course, it doesn't work that way. We all have our specialties and different levels of experience and training in those I can't think of the word. In those, well, we often call them verticals. Certain things that are industry specific, or someone might be a laptop specialist, someone might be a software specialist, someone might be a specific software specialist, or a networking specialist, or a server specialist, or firewall specialist with Juniper and Cisco, etc. Those all have their own certifications, and they're all full-time jobs just doing that one thing, or that one subject matter. It's not one thing, but it entails a lot of things to configure a firewall for an organization. So a lot of people are completely unaware of this. Even to this day, as I mentioned, as more people use computers than ever before in the history of mankind, the common misconception is if you know computers, then you know everything. If it goes to a computer, you understand it. The number of requests I get for people asking me for advice on where to set up an online merchant account, to accept credit cards, I don't know. I have no idea. It's not what I do. Where to go to get the best website design? No idea. I thought you were a computer tech. I am, not a developer. So that conversation has been going on for 30 years. I don't expect that to go away, but at least my answer isn't breaking people's hearts like the loss of data. So the other reason I wanted to start a little earlier today was because the screwdriver I use here, this is the Milwaukee M4 electric screwdriver, and it's by far the best electric screwdriver for electronics work I've ever used. I used to use the Panasonic. I had it was like a beige or a gray Panasonic screwdriver, and prior to that I had the previous model Panasonic driver, which was black and gold. Until I had experience with this, now I've tried a lot of other electronic drivers, such as Hitachi's got one, which I hated. Black & Decker's is terrible. DeWalt's is terrible. Actually, DeWalt's is good for construction work, but not for fine electronic work. So the Milwaukee is good for electronics work, and it's really ideal when working on computers, which is why you see me use it so often. It's got 2 different speeds for the spindle. It's got a clutch. It has a locking mechanism that locks the buttons and locks the spindle so you can turn it like a mechanical driver. It doesn't have any sort of light on it, which the Panasonic had, but I've never used it and think the lights are a waste of time. It can go into 2 positions. It's a lithium-ion battery. It charges relatively quickly, and it stays charged for me for, oh gosh, I'd say about 3 months on average. Probably goes a little longer than that. I tend to charge it up when I'm at 2 bars. There's 4 bars total. When it gets down to 2, I'll typically charge it before it gets to 1. And the driver's quite expensive, and when you buy it, you just get you get the handle, you get like a little carrying case, you get 1 battery, and you get 1 charger. And that's going to set you back, about $200. Now, you can pick it up a little cheaper if there's a Home Depot that you can order it from, but on Amazon, you're probably looking around $200. And then I buy the bit separately. I buy the bit at Amazon. And then this is just a little bit magnetizer right here. I also buy it at Amazon. And all of these items I buy at Amazon are in my Amazon store. I have a new link, one I've never used before, that's in these notes under this video, to take you right to my Amazon store for all the tools and things you see me use here on this channel. So I thought, you know, I'm always looking for a better driver. I've got no complaints about this one, but hey, you know, I didn't have any complaints about the Panasonic one until I found this one. So I'm always on the lookout, and I saw this driver available at Amazon for under $40. And it's called an Enertwist, and it's got an 8-volt lithium battery with a 2-year limited warranty with 1 year of free service and a 90-day money-back guarantee. It is, it's a lot of screwdriver for $37 and change. So here's what you get. Here's the box. I'm going to just open it and see how it comes packaged, and we'll see if this is something I would recommend. First of all, you get a ton of bits. We've got a bunch of Phillips bits. There's hex bits, flat blade bits, more Phillips, a couple of Torx. Looks like there's 2 T10s there for some reason. You've got a magnetic bit holder. If you just use the bits without a magnetic bit holder, they're not going to be magnetized. So also the bits end up being too short at the end of any electronic driver. So you always want to have this. I always buy them separately, but this driver here comes with it, which is a nice touch. These, wow, this is something that you can put into the end of the driver and put your bit on this side, and it enables you to bend or twist if you're somewhere it's hard to reach. I think these sell for almost 20 bucks on Amazon, just that a piece alone. Not that I've ever needed one, but it comes with the kit. Now the kit, I'd say that right there is worth 37 bucks. Personally, I think that's a fair price. Documentation, more bits. We have a plug, so obviously this does not have a removable battery. You'll have to plug the driver into this wall wart to charge it. Look, you had to know for under $40 there had to be some compromises, right? We've got more bits. We've got hex nut bits, more Phillips bits, a bunch more Torx bits, a lot of Torx bits, and then some square bits, the S1, S0, S0, S1, S2, and S3 bits. And that's a lot of bits. Let's take a look at the driver. Okay, here's the Enertwist driver. Now, look, Enertwist has no idea who I am. They did not send me the driver for free, and I have no arrangement or affiliate arrangement agreement with Enertwist. I saw this driver, I thought it was too cheap to be good, and I put it on a wish list if viewers want to buy things for the channel. And this viewer, Ryan out of Nevada, has sent me a number of items, and I'm going to be covering more of them in the future, but this is an item he sent me. He said, I saw that on your wish list you wanted this, and thank you to Ryan in Nevada for sending it. So it looks very similar. It appears to only have one rotation speed. This is a lock that locks the paddle. I don't like the paddle. I prefer buttons. Paddles, it's okay, but a button would be easier. It does have a light, which I don't care about. It's two position, just like that one. It's a clutch, goes all the way up to 21. This one only goes to 20. On the bottom, this is where you'll plug it in to charge it. You can check the status of your charge by pushing this button, and you'll see the lights will light up. If you move the switch, this little icon shows a little bulb. This doesn't light up, but the front will light up with the light. And if we hit the switch in the back, that turns the light off. It's a little thicker. The Milwaukee's thinner, which makes it an easier thing for me to grip. It has a, when you lift up on the chuck to release the bit, let's put that in there. It has a bit of spindle wobble. Not terrible. I mean, that's a lot of screwdriver in bits and battery and charger for $37 and free shipping with a warranty. Well, I've yet to use this. If I was on a budget and couldn't afford this, or I was more of a hobbyist. Obviously, if you're working, the investment in tools is important. But if you're a hobbyist and you're just looking for something that might make it a little easier for you, sure. I think it's better than any other driver in this price range. It does seem like they might be using a motor with brushes. There's like little vent holes here. And a brushless motor would obviously cost more money. So I can see where they're saving some money here, like I say, with the spindle wobbles just a little bit. I don't know why they went with this paddle instead of with switches, but so be it. Only one speed instead of two speeds, but I keep this on the high speed anyway. Very rarely do I turn it down. It feels well built, it's comfortable. Like I say, it's a little bit wide. But yeah, I have no problem recommending this as long as you set your expectations accordingly. $200 versus $40. No bits. I mean, this is worth it just for the bits. And it's got some rattle. I don't know what the rattle is, but it doesn't seem to impact its ability to do its job. So again, setting your expectations at $37. This should be a $75 driver with all of this, in my opinion, based on that quality. And then you spend a little over twice as much and get a workhorse like the Milwaukee M4 if you're serious about the work you're doing and you require it. Not that you can't be serious with this one. I don't know what the longevity of this is. I don't know how it would withstand daily use and abuse in the industry, but like I said, if you're just getting started or a hobbyist, I think it's a heck of a deal. XRod666 contributes $10, says, howdy Kerry, how you doing? Hey XRod, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Steve H. with $10 says, hey, Carrie, have a good weekend. Thank you, Steve. Mark Baggett with $5. Carrie in chat, hello. Happy Friday, everyone. Yes, happy Friday. Thank you, Mark and Steve, for supporting the channel. Appreciate you guys. In fact, I should make sure that I have my viewer activity selected so I can see these contributions in the future. And if I pull up the YouTube page with this screwdriver, I can show you on Amazon what it appears like today. Keeping in mind, prices and availability on Amazon fluctuate daily. But there is, wait, where did it go? Authentication. I don't want authentication. There it is. There's the Enertwist cordless screwdriver. That's it. $37.99. It says they have an 8-volt cordless Pro for $8 more. Wonder what the difference is. Max fast rechargeable, and the other one's just rechargeable. 82-piece accessory kit. 82-piece accessory kit. Not quite sure what the difference is between the two. Maybe just the speed of charging. Looks like it's got an average of 4.5 stars out of nearly 3,700 ratings. And a link to this is in the video notes below the video. If you use any of my links that take you to Amazon and you make a purchase of anything at Amazon, then I will make a small commission during that Amazon visit. I won't see who bought, but I can see what somebody bought. I just won't know who it was. So if you guys were to buy one of these drivers, or several of you, I would see in my commissions so many of these were sold. And then based on that, that's how I know how much Amazon owes me. But I don't see who purchased. So it's total privacy, and there's no price difference for you. And it's another way to support the channel anonymously. This person says, none of the bits are staying in the screwdriver. Well, yeah, because the bits have to have the divot in them. You'll have that with any driver. So here we've got somebody who doesn't really understand what they bought. This person's complaining about the torque. Once again, when you're at this $37 price range, I don't know how many people have a tool to test how much torque, but it's just really intended for electronics work where you wouldn't need even that much torque. This person says, can use improvement. Well, you can buy the Milwaukee for $200. I kind of get amused reading what some of the folks think they're getting for $37, and they want to compare it to a $200 driver. I don't think that's a fair comparison. I think it's worth $75 with whatever shortcomings they're going to say it has in the reviews. People that picky shouldn't be scraping the bottom of the barrel. They should be going the opposite direction to look for higher end equipment that costs more to meet those kind of demanding and intolerant requirements, in my opinion. But there it is. That's the Enertwist cordless driver. $37.99 is a crazy good price. I don't even know how they can make it and ship it and put it in that carrying case. I mean, just this alone would be, without the driver, that's easily worth the price just for all those bits in the carrying case. I'm just scrolling through the pictures to see if I've missed anything. Yeah, it's got the quick chuck, 21 precision clutch, the safety switch, comfort grip, lightweight. Yeah, the weight of it doesn't really seem much different from the Milwaukee. Yeah, that's how you use the clutch. I mean, they show them putting cabinetry together. I don't know how well this driver's going to do that. And they show a bit going directly into the chuck without a bit holder. That's not ideal. And they show the dual position, and then they show all of the accessories that you get in the case. You definitely want to use that magnetic bit holder to hold onto your screws, or the magnetic bit holder. as they apparently have left an R off of there. But anyway, I think it's a great deal and worth checking out. Thank you again to Ryan in Nevada for sending this along. And I'll have to just, on occasion, use it and see how it holds up with real-world use. I don't expect much. So if it works effortlessly beyond its warranty, good deal. If there's a problem while it's in warranty, they'll swap it out for free. So good deal. I don't know how you can lose. Michael Maggs with a 2-pound contribution says, hey, Kerry, I really enjoy your videos. Thank you. Thank you, Michael. The Greek contributes $10. He says, hopefully the backup message gets through to those on the fence. Well, I got to tell you, the Greek, I've kind of reached a point where I'm like this lifeguard, and I'm telling people, don't go in the water unless you have a life preserver. And some people are going, I don't need a life preserver. And then they're yelling, lifeguard, I'm drowning, help. And I have to swim out there and go get them and bring them back. And I'm exhausted and, you know, trying to catch my breath when the next person is like, help me, I'm drowning. And I'm about to just walk away from it and say, this isn't my responsibility. If these people choose to voluntarily put themselves in harm's way after being warned or claiming they didn't know any better, I'm just going to count it up to Darwinism. I know it sounds cold, but I cannot save the world alone, and I never signed up for that job. I kind of found myself in it because I like to help people. But by now, after 30 years, talking about backups, after 30 years of customers who've never lost data before coming to me like Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. No, I'm not. I cannot bring your data back. You need to go to recovery service, and they're very expensive. I've had 3 customers out of about 300 use data recovery services. The other 297 couldn't afford it or wouldn't pay for it. But they all had the same OMG moment and came to me for help. And it angers me that I can't help them, or that the help, I already know this is played out. It's like Groundhog Day. It just keeps playing out over and over and over and over. And so my empathy has been worn down to a nub when it comes to that particular reason for a call. And it's why I am so excited and I'm so happy to be working with Acronis, and I can get you guys this offer. So anyway, it's just a side of the business. You know, if I was in the data recovery business, well, I'm sure I'd be making a ton of money based on the people who won't spend a little bit. Those same people either will lose the data forever, or they'll spend 100 times more to get the data back. So that doesn't make any sense to me. My phone is beeping here. Let's see what's going on. Did I not silence it? Oh, Kelly Stewart sent an Amazon gift card for $50. Hey, Kelly, thank you so much for your continued support, my friend. And appreciate you. So yeah, I mean, I hate to sound cold. You know, I hate to sound like a jerk about it. But honestly, I didn't sign up for that. It's not, when I got into this career, it was about repairing computers. And then when people started losing data, they weren't losing much. These days, because there are more computers and more computer users, and the storage capacity is larger, the amount of data they're losing is far worse than it's ever been in my life. In 1995, no one ever said I lost 500 gigs of data. Corporation maybe, but not an individual. In 2005, I don't think anybody ever said that. So nowadays, you're looking at 20 terabytes on a single hard disk drive, and 4 terabytes, 2 terabytes, 8 terabytes on an NVMe drive. That's a lot to lose. That is a lot. and getting it back is really, really complicated and requires special tools and a special education on how to use those tools. So as you can imagine, my ability to help has been severely diminished because of the newer technology. The amount of help people need is severely magnified compared to what it used to be. And there should be no reason that people who feel such ways about their data don't make copies of that important data to put elsewhere, just in case of such an emergency. But I can talk about it till I'm blue in the face, and the people who aren't going to back up just aren't going to do it. I just hope they won't call me. I'm hoping they won't call me. Because when I take the call, it's not like I know the reason why they're calling until I answer the phone. And I am forced, against my will, to have this discussion that I have repeated thousands of times in my career regarding data recovery, what the process is, what the timeline is, what the expense is, offering suggestions on who they could go to for quotes, asking why they didn't back up their data. So that's why I say I think from now on, in order to avoid customers putting me in an uncomfortable situation that I'm not getting paid for and that makes me squirm, I think I'm just going to ask them, why didn't you back up your data? And that's the way every conversation of I need help, I lost my data, that's the first question I'm going to ask them. And hopefully that will avoid the rest of the uncomfortable conversation. And if I don't win any friends that way, doesn't change anything in my world. I want to help people, but when people do something to themselves that I've warned them not to do, but then they come to me for help after they did what I said not to do, I just don't want to help them because I'm tired. I've sort of worn out of that scenario. It's happened too many times. Check, please. You know what I mean? It's like, if this was 20 years ago, I'd probably have a different attitude, but I've been beaten up pretty badly by it, and I don't want to take those beatings anymore. Tom K contributes $2. He goes, keep carrying the torch. Right on, Tom. Thank you. I want to focus on my specialty, which is on building and repairing computers, not data recovery. And I've got a friend who's got a very old computer, and you know, I always like to help my friends, and I have some parts here that I want to put together and make him a really good deal on a system. So today's build is basically going to be an 8-year build. Very budget friendly. You could probably do this for $700 or $800, depending on what RAM and storage you pick. If you want to put a more powerful power supply in it and add a discrete graphics card, you could turn it into a gaming computer. There is no glass panel, no liquid cooling, no overclocking, and no RGB, so that saves us nearly the entire cost of the computer. By adding glass panel, liquid cooling, RGB, and overclocking, you are probably doubling a $700 computer to a $1,400 computer. That is literally the kind of profit being made on the nonsense they sell to enthusiasts. Now, if you want to spend your money on nonsense, don't let me get in your way. But for the rest of us that are practical and pragmatic, and we know these computers are only going to last, you know, this is an 8-year build. At 8 years, it's still going to function, but that's a long time for a computer given how the evolution of technology is expanding as quickly as it is. I'm slightly amused when there are reviews of any new CPU or any new laptop, because of course the new one's better. What do you think you're going to see in the review? Don't buy this new one, it's slower than the old one. You'll never see that. Don't buy the new CPU. Of course the new CPU is faster than the old one. Why do you need to watch a review to see that? Of course it is. And of course the further away it is, like if your CPU was bought 5 years ago, do you think a new one's going to be any faster? Probably. And if you got to know exactly how much faster, there's no way for you to possibly know that, because nobody uses your computer the way you do. And so the performance difference will be unique for each computer user depending on how they use the computer. So you can watch a video showing you in benchmarks this runs 17% faster in this and blah, blah, blah. But that's completely speculation based on a set of variables that are constant. When you're using your computer, you'll have different variables, and those may also be constant, but they won't be the same as what the reviewer is doing. So the reviewer can kind of give you an overview in general, very vague, or very, very specific as it applies to individual applications used in a certain way, configured in a certain way. But in general, you could also just simply say, it's newer, it's more advanced, therefore it's faster. How much faster depends on how you use it. Some people may not notice much of a performance increase from one generation to the next, while others might be blown away. And as you keep going generation after generation, I advise most of my customers, for example, my business clients, to replace their computers after 4 or 5 years, 5 years max. When we take a computer that's been in use for 5 years, and we replace it with a brand new machine, they have 5 years worth of evolution they're experiencing at once. Not just the CPU, but the chipset, the RAM, the graphics card technology, the storage speed and capacity. I mean, so much changes. It's like an entire lifetime of changes in 5 years. You know, we go from using mechanical hard drives to using solid state drives to using NVMe M.2 drives to PCIe Gen 4. Now there's going to be PCIe Gen 5. We've got DDR5 that everybody's going to be using here, certainly by next year. I think all the new Ryzen processors, the next generation, are probably all going to need DDR5. And such is the way of computers, right? So it's not like we're going to build something, we're going to keep it forever. So let's put a bunch of RGB and liquid cooling and glass panels and custom mod it and paint it. For what? You're going to have it a couple of years. So if you want something as a tool, as a means to check your email, stay in touch with family, or run your business, what we want is great performance for the dollar, reliability, and simplicity when it comes to upgrading and repairing. But we also don't want to have to repair it. So the parts I'm showing you are what I recommend in my business, and I very rarely ever have to repair one of these computers for any reason. So while you can substitute other parts I'm using, the reason I'm using these specific parts, and you'll see me use them over and over again, is so I can stay in business. I don't make any money on warranty repairs, and I don't win any customers' favors by inconveniencing them to have a new computer fail and they have to wait for me to come out and repair it. So they're not happy, I'm not happy, and it's costing me money. And if it happens too often, I go out of business. So it's about price, it's about value, it's about reliability, it's about expected performance for that price, and it's about ease to put it together. It's about the availability to even get the parts, because they could be the best parts at the best price, but what good is that if you can't get them? And they should be very easy to upgrade, easy to get in the case, do whatever you need to do, close it back up, and not have to take it halfway apart to change one stupid thing. So that's very much a business perspective, and I don't know why anybody would want it any other way, unless they're just bored and looking for something to do, but, you know, God bless them if that's the case. Thank you to, what have I missed here? I missed a contribution. Wilhelm Gordon contributes $20. He says, keep up the great work. Love it. Hey, Wilhelm, thank you. Channel Zero contributes $5 Australian. He says, the 200R is not sold in Australia. What else do you recommend? I have 2 optical drives. I do like the 100R. Thank you for everything. Well, Channel Zero, thank you for the contribution. The 100R is a little too thin for the Mugen cooler, as I recall. It had some issues. I only used it one time. I don't know. I mean, really, a case that you pick is really going to be up to you. A lot of cases these days are not going to have the option to install 1 optical drive, let alone 2. and they're generally going to have glass panels. I think Be Quiet makes the Pure Base 600 that might work for you, but I don't know that that's available in Australia. So maybe somebody in Australia can make a recommendation for you that's, perhaps here in the chat. But with no glass panel and have the ability to add 2 optical drives, I don't know, maybe a Cougar MX410, if you can find them. It's got to be the 410 mesh, because the other 410 has a glass panel. Stephen Gerzak with a $2.99 contribution, and Blue Zone contributes $2. Wants to know, Kerry, what version or which tier of Acronis do you suggest? The tier of Acronis should be whichever one you need, whatever one meets your needs. So if we go over to Acronis, I'll tell you what, let's do that now. Let me go back to my Amazon page, and I will walk you through this so it can help you make a decision. I can't make the decision for you. I can only give you the information that will hopefully help you to make a decision. But if we just go to acronis.com, and we'll go to, it says for individuals right here. Unless you're running a business, maybe you're running a business. But if we go to for individuals and click try now, you'll see that you can download and try Acronis for 30 days for free. Now, if you want to buy it and you're looking at the tiers, we'll go to buy the full version, and you'll see 3 different versions appear, which is Essentials, Advanced, and Premium. Now, if you've got, so there are different tiers within the tiers, is what I'm trying to say. So Essentials, for example, you can drop down and get it for 3 computers or 5 computers, and your price per computer comes down, and then when you add the coupon code, then that price comes down even further. It makes it like $10 per computer per year. And likewise, this is the same here for 3 computers or for 5. So your price per machine goes down. But do bear in mind that your subscription starts the day you buy it, not the day you install it. So if you install it on one computer today, another computer next month, well, now you've got 11 months left on both. A third computer 3 months from now, well, now all 3 computers will all expire on that same day, 12 months after you've purchased it. So to take advantage of it, you'd want to install it without hesitation on the number of machines you've purchased for. And here you can see the differences between the versions, and you can decide which one is going to suit your needs and for how many computers, and whether or not you want to store your images out into Acronis's cloud, totally encrypted and secured with blockchain to ensure that there's no changes made to it. Whatever version you decide to buy, you will select and then hit, like here, I'm usually recommending, just for most people, 1 computer, $49.99 a year. Hit buy now, and then they go, where do I put the coupon code? They look over here, you put, your name, your zip code, your payment method. Where's the coupon code? Well, the coupon code is right here. Right here, it says click to enter your coupon code. If I click that, I would enter Kerry Holzman 2022. No spaces are in coupon codes. Kerry Holzman 2022, hit apply, and then watch this price change. Now it's $29.99. Then come over here and complete your purchase. It's that easy. So yeah, that's how you would decide which version of Acronis is right for you. And don't be afraid to download the trial. It's completely free for 30 days. You don't need a credit card or anything. Just download the trial and give it a shot. So I hope that helps. Thank you for the question and for your contribution. Patrick Rusaw just contributed $5. He wants to know if I'll be using the $37 screwdriver kit in today's build. It could make a great Amazon product video as well. Patrick, that's sure, why not? Not a bad idea. Let's do that. Irving T, a little earlier, contributed €5. He says, hey, Kerry, I still use the Panasonic screwdriver. Hey, and why not, Irving? I mean, it's a great driver. I just think the Milwaukee's better. And I don't know about you, but I do this for a living. And I've already broken one of my Milwaukee drivers, and they replaced it free of charge. I never broke any of the Panasonic drivers. We did take one apart to replace the battery pack in it. I think the older one was a nickel metal hydride battery. It was just not good. And we switched it out. A friend of mine helped me switch it out to lithium ion, and I've never used it since, but it holds a charge forever. And I think that's still back at Studio A. So yeah, why don't we do that? We can take out the Enertwist driver, and we'll build today's computer with it. Yeah. All right, let's start by prepping our motherboard. So all the parts for today's build are in the video notes below the video, including links to Acronis. And I always like to prep the motherboard first. And in this case, we're going to be using a B560 HD3. Now, when these boards came out, they were on sale for $89.99, which I thought was an amazing price. So I bought a box of them. This box comes with 10. So $899 or whatever it was. Today, these boards, if they're available, sell for nearly twice that. And I knew that was going to happen because it happened to the B460 before it, and it happened to the B360 before that. So I said, okay, I know they do this now. So I ordered a box. And I still got a few left in the box, but I'm glad I did it. The Mugen 5 coolers, when they were in stock, I ordered a box of those, a box of like 10. They're $59.99 a piece, but when I try and create a link to it to Amazon, there's no product page for the black version of the Mugen 5. It's out of stock, and for whatever reason, Amazon has removed the page. It takes you to the silver version. I have no idea why. The silver version is also $10 cheaper. It should take me to the black version and just tell us it's out of stock, but it's not doing that. I'm sure it will be back in stock again. If we look historically, when I've talked about the Mugen 5 and I've talked about Amazon, and there's people in the chat room going, oh, it's out of stock, and Amazon says, you know, they may never get it again. Well, Amazon says that about everything that goes out of stock because Amazon's not the one making it. So if anything goes out of stock, the boilerplate answer is, this item is out of stock and it may never become available again. Or it might, okay? It always goes back in stock, but there's always delays in manufacturing and distribution. We're dealing with massive shutdowns due to COVID in China. So big manufacturing cities in China have been completely locked down due to a massive outbreak of COVID there. And that is also affecting manufacturing for some products. Hopefully we're coming off the end of that lockdown over there. But you will see some items are currently out of stock, and it's probably related to that lockdown where they do so much manufacturing. But it's temporary, and I'm sure the black edition of the Mugen 5 will come back in stock. What was another reason I ordered as many as I did is I kept seeing things go out of stock, and then they'd be out of stock for a while, and then they come back in stock. Then they go out of stock, and then they're back in stock. Same with the 200Rs. I ordered 14 of those. I'm down to about 8 left. In stock, out of stock. So when they're in stock, I buy as many as I can so I don't have to react. I understand we all grew up, especially before the pandemic, that you waited until you wanted something and it was available for you to buy. But this is requiring a different attitude. Otherwise, you're just going to be disappointed if you don't change your attitude. Things are not waiting for you to buy anymore. People are buying things up. And so, while you see items in inventory, I wouldn't be too confident that those items are going to remain in inventory later when you have the money. Maybe they will. You're going to roll the dice. But for you to expect it to be in inventory during a pandemic while all this is going on for the last 2 years, that just disconnects you from reality. You have unreasonable expectations. So because I'm running a business, I have to think ahead. I have to say, okay, What if somebody wants to buy a computer from me and I can't get the motherboard, or I can't get the CPU, or I can't get the cooler? What do I do? Well, I do one of two things. One, well, there's actually three things I can do. One, I go on eBay or some other questionable source site, Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, and try and find a motherboard used, which is rolling the dice, and rolls the dice on my reputation. It's also more labor intensive to do the research to locate it and then wait for it to arrive and then hope nothing is wrong with it. And then if there is anything wrong with it, I'm likely never going to get a refund. So if I order from Amazon, I get it quickly. I have good customer service. I have peace of mind, and I don't risk my entire business on trying to satisfy a customer's request. I could look on Amazon for Amazon warehouse parts, which I've done, and that got me through a little bit, but I can't sell those at full price, and I'm rolling the dice on warranty on those. I'm letting customers know I'm going to discount the price on this because it's a returned product. It seems to work fine. I do not know why it was returned. If I thought there was anything wrong with it, I wouldn't sell it to you. However, just bear in mind that I can't get anything else at this time. So if you want to not wait, if you want a computer today, I can give you this and I can discount it. And if there's anything wrong with it, I'm still going to warranty it. So I'm already making less money, doing more work. And if anything happens to it, I'm damaging my reputation, and I'm having to work for free to get it repaired, whatever I have to do. Or my third option is I buy everything in advance, right? If I can afford it, stock up. Not too much. If I stock up more than I can sell, the parts just reduce value over time, and I lose money. And I suppose a fourth option is to say, sorry, I'm not able to build a computer for you. In some occasions, I still might tell somebody I won't build a computer for them if they want a computer that's, I feel, going to be very, very complex to build and may be more likely to require support. So I'm not building any X299 systems for people. I'm not doing any Threadripper systems for people. They're far too finicky. They're very expensive. And a lot of these people that want to do this, they want the liquid coolers and they want the RGB. And I'm like, you can buy that somewhere else. Somebody, a friend of mine reached out and they saw a computer from one of the boutique builders that was an X299 X-Core processor from Intel, like a 10th gen X-Core, and it was just a hair under $5,000. And so their offer to me was, I'd be interested in having you build it if you can give me a cheaper price. Like, if I was going to build that, I'd charge you more. That's way too much work and a huge investment in parts and a nightmare to support it. There's no way I'm doing it for less than this boutique builder's doing it. I might do it for the same price, but I don't know where people got the idea that I'm some guy that goes around picking up trash out of the street and turning it into something new and selling it for a nickel. I don't know where people got that idea from. I can recommend a good computer for a fair amount of money that's not gouging you, and you're not overpaying, in my opinion, for unnecessary things like RGB and liquid cooling. And, I did tell the customer if they got rid of the RGB, and if they got rid of the liquid cooling, and if they got rid of the X-Core processor and got a consumer-based processor, they could probably bring this build down to less than half, bring it down below $2,500, and then I'd be interested in building it. And I wanted to know, why do you want this? What are you going to use it for? And the answer was essentially, because I can afford it, because that's what I want. I want more power than I'll ever use. I want RGB I don't need. I want liquid cooling. That means nothing to me. I don't want to build for those customers. It doesn't make any sense. And it can only go bad for me, right? The more somebody spends, the higher their expectations are. It's bad enough if a $700 computer needs a repair. When a $5,000 needs a repair, they expect, generally speaking, immediate service, despite the fact that they're not paying any additional for that. And the same can be said for cars. You know, if you take your Mercedes to the dealer for work, you'll likely be treated very differently than if you take your Nissan or your Hyundai to the dealer. I mean, I had a Hyundai and I've taken it to the dealership to have an oil change, and when I pull into the service area, there's nobody around. It's my own voice echoing in there, and I'm wondering if I'm invisible in the middle of the afternoon. Where are all the employees? Nobody greets me, nobody says hello, nothing. But take a BMW to the dealer to have an oil change, and they greet me as I pull up, and they know who I am. Hello, Mr. Holzman. You know, they've got all the data from the license plate on the car. It's already on the data pad. They already know who I am. How can we help you? I want the oil change. Hey, do you want to stay? We wait for it, or do you want a loaner car? I'll take a loaner car. Okay, do you want a sedan or an SUV? I think it's really smart to put customers in loaner cars, because as happy as I am with the car I'm having serviced, and I think I don't need to buy a new car. This car's fine. When they put me in the loaner, it's a brand new car, and it's like, ooh, this is nice. Oh, I didn't know how nice it could be. Oh, maybe I should be trading my car in and getting something. So it's just interesting how, you know, every once in a while you run into a customer that buys that cheaper car, but when they take it to service, they're expecting that high-end car service, and then they get angry when they don't get it. I don't know why they ever expected it. That was unreasonable for them to expect that. You buy a cheaper car, generally speaking, you should be expecting that level of service that is equivalent to the value of the car. And much the same way people treat computers. If they're buying a $5,000 single computer, they're going to generally expect you're going to take care of things. And if things need to get taken care of, they're generally less tolerant to it. You know, for this kind of money, I shouldn't have to tolerate putting up with these kind of errors or these kind of repairs. So I will walk away. I will politely turn that work down, because that's the kind of work that can put me out of business. And then when the whole thing is based on if I can get it to them for less money, that's their deciding factor. Not, hey, I'd rather let my friend build it or let somebody I know build it than some strangers at a boutique builder. There's no thought in there for me. It's all about them. So thankfully, I don't need that kind of work. So it's just sort of, you know, from my perspective, it's like, well, thanks for thinking of me, I guess. That's just part of the territory I'm in. But I share it with you so you understand. If you want to get into this line of work, be prepared. These are the kind of challenges that you may face, or that customers may challenge you to, and you might see dollar signs and chase down those dollar signs only to have it cost you a lot more than you earned. Jim KJ3N says the Cougar MX410 has no optical support. I thought it did, but no, I guess you're right. No, the mesh, it's a completely mesh front, so you're correct. Yeah, getting that front optical support is going to be difficult. Mikolaj contributes 10 PLN. Is that Polish? What do you think about Patriot SSDs? They're fine. I don't use Patriot personally because I think there's a better value from Samsung or AData or SanDisk or who else? Intel. But they're all pretty much the same with regards to warranty and speed for price. I don't really have anything against Patriot, but I don't have anything for Patriot either. I prefer Intel and Samsung for the software support side of maintaining those NVMe drives over time. But I can't tell you a good reason not to buy a Patriot drive. Why do you ask? And thank you for the contribution and your question. And Bob R. shares my Amazon shop link. Thank you, Bob, for sharing that. Ski Man says hello. There's Dunkenny in stealth mode and Randy Reed in the chat. Welcome in, guys. Dorado Systems says hello, dear Carrie in chat from Bucharest, Romania. I am glad that you presented Acronis that well and got in touch with them. Acronis recently opened an office in Bucharest, and we are meeting to chat. Right on. Yeah, Acronis is a worldwide company, and that's why a lot of the giveaways, they have to be in the United States. I can't ship anything that's, well, hardware outside of the USA. So software that you can just download and a coupon code you can enter, you can use that all over the world. So I love that it's all inclusive for all viewers all over the world. Mario Rossi says, thank you, Mr. Holzman from Bogota, Colombia. Thank you, Mario. Viewers from all over the world today. How cool. Ryan contributes $5 Canadian, says Carrie builds the Bentley of computers. I say, well, no, this is definitely not the Bentley. So Bentleys are really expensive and over the top, and they can be expensive to maintain. We're looking at best bang for the buck, great performance, great reliability, and keeping them secure and quiet. You know, when you can build a brand new computer for right around $700 and it's going to be faster than any computer you'll likely have ever owned before, I think that's a pretty good deal. And when that computer will run for years and years and years without requiring any service, there may be an exception, but I can tell you as a business owner, it better just be an exception because I could go out of business. And I built these for years, so I know from my own experience which parts to choose for reliability and price. One Cave Purr contributes $3. Thank you for the contribution. I don't understand your name, but I appreciate the contribution. And Mark Leonicio says hello from Las Vegas. Oh, it's 1CA Viper. I see. It still doesn't make any sense, but we'll go with it. It's fine. It's fine. Catherine Anna Hauserman says Carrie put Skodas together, sturdy and reliable. We don't have Skodas in the United States. The closest to that we have is Volkswagen. And I don't know enough to confirm, to agree or not. I've never seen a Skoda in my life because I've never been to Europe. Leon Parma says, Carrie Holzman builds the Carrie Holzman of computers. That's the most accurate statement yet. All right, well, let's get some work done. Why not? I mean, I've been live now for over an hour and I haven't done anything. Well, that's not true. I've shared a lot of information with you. The builds are very repetitive. You're going to see the same processes. This is done for at least two reasons. One, I have to do the work anyway. I might as well film it. And if you have a job, chances are whatever you do for a living, I'm sure a good portion of it's repetitive. The second reason is I want to hammer home to those skeptical or those who feel like they're just not quite sure. that if they keep seeing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again, that it'll boost their confidence, that they're less likely going to be blindsided or surprised. And that's their fear, you know. Oh, he makes it look easy. Well, maybe. By doing it over and over and over and over again, it's going to be easier for me. But it's still easy. Got our SATA cables there. It still slightly amuses me when people ask me to build computers for them. The whole purpose of this channel is to encourage you to build your own computer. It's not, hey, come buy a computer from me. But against my wishes, I've been finding myself in a situation where I've got computers here and I don't know what to do with them. I bought them and built them for content. And I figure, well, since people are asking me to build computers for them anyway, why don't I just offer these for sale? I've had people email me and they said, I heard you have computers for sale. What do you got? I'm like, dude, you think I'm going to write down in an email a personal inventory of the assets of my business? First of all, how much time do you think that's going to take? Second of all, why don't you just tell me what you want or how you want to use the computer and what your budget is? And then I'll tell you what I've got based on those requirements. I'm not going to write a 10-page email of all my inventory and all the different configurations. And furthermore, a lot of my parts are just assembled boards like what we're doing now that don't have power supplies or cases, because depends on the customer. Customer might say, I want this case or that case, or I want more storage or less storage, more RAM or less RAM. That's easier for me to change out with the board already assembled. I can do that. Here's a price, and I can have it done in 2 days. They don't have to wait 4 months. It's already here. So sometimes people think I'm some kind of discount warehouse, which I don't know why they got that idea. I'm trying to sell practicality. I don't make any money on the computers I sell over the internet. I make money on the service of the computers to local businesses who pay me to maintain the computers. So all the money I make in this is in building a computer. There's only 2 ways I make money building a computer. One, by making this video. And YouTube doesn't pay very well. And by doesn't pay very well, I mean I make half today on YouTube what I used to make on YouTube 2 years ago when I had 100,000 less subscribers. Can anybody explain that to me? Makes no sense to me. So then I have to reach out to sponsors, right? Sponsors like the good folks at Acronis or CDK Deals or RoboForm. And those sponsors I'm very selective about. I don't just take anybody. And believe me, I get a lot of requests for some weird stuff they want me to sponsor. And I say no. Guy reached out to me yesterday. Doesn't introduce himself. He's on Facebook and he says, do you like Hi, Carrie. How are you? I give him a thumbs up. I don't know, I'm not engaging in a long conversation with a stranger. So the next day he says, trying to remember the question. How do you feel about mechanical keyboards? Like, not really interested, because I can already see where this is going. Either this is an individual who has nothing better to do, who wants to talk to me about mechanical keyboards for some reason, or it's a salesman who is trying to convince me to have an interest, or he's gauging my interest in his product. So anyway, I said, I'm not interested. And he said, well, you should be. It's a computer peripheral. Oh. So telling me what I should be doing, if you're a salesman, that's not a good tactic. You can start your own YouTube channel and you can show me how it's done. Go right ahead. I won't stop you. But here I am doing this, and this person I never heard of is going to tell me how to do it. I have no interest in accepting whatever offer he's got regarding mechanical keyboards. If he wants to pay for the cost of production, for me to take the time to introduce the keyboard, unbox it, try it out, not even a review, but an overview, which is essentially kind of like a commercial, he could pay for that. Well, we'll pay you an affiliate link, commission for every one you sell. No. So what am I going to make? If I sold 100 keyboards, what am I going to make? $200? Get out of here. So it's like there's no appreciation for the value of the audience I built, and they don't care if I implode by just throwing any advertiser at my audience until my audience is like, I'm not watching this guy anymore. He doesn't seem to have any integrity. He's selling anything he can sell, and I can't trust him anymore. And then I won't have a channel, and then I'll find some other way to make money. But when these people ask, they don't really fully understand. When I tell them no, they don't seem to understand the potential consequences if I tell them yes, and they oftentimes won't take no for an answer. I deal with this daily. So when I tell you that those 3 sponsors, Acronis, CDK Deals, and RoboForm, you might say that's a lot of sponsors. It isn't. And furthermore, Acronis, we're just doing a 30-day campaign. Once this 30-day campaign is over, that deal is done. So I'm not going to be just hitting you over the head every day about Acronis, right? I'm telling you right now, and I hope you take advantage of it, because the more impact that this has to Acronis, the more licenses they sell, the more they want to work with me again. If they don't sell very many, as much as I like them, they might be, yeah, we're not really seeing enough movement from you, but thanks anyway. So it works both ways. And hopefully, I have no way of knowing, but I hope a lot of you are taking advantage of that offer while it exists. And I appreciate Acronis giving us the chance to show them how big our community is and the impact that we can have, and why we're worth making a special offer for. That being said, let me try and focus back on just trying to get this out of the box. I've had people want me to review socks. They want me to review baby monitors. They want me to review home camera security systems. They want me to review their data recovery software. That one's such a gimmick. Data recovery software really isn't. There is data undeletion tools. You can recover deleted files. But as far as recovery goes, most of those data recovery tools don't recover like a real recovery tool will. Like if the drive has damage, things like that, they're useless. And if you download the data recovery tool and install it, you might be installing it right on top of the data you were just trying to recover, making it unrecoverable. So it's like you better have the data recovery software on another machine or already installed, and you keep it up to date, because any writing to the drive you want to undelete files from potentially makes those files irretrievable. So I don't get into that, because I think it's hokey to tell people it's data recovery software when it really isn't. It's just undeleting files. And if you have to do any data recovery that's not involving deleted files, but rather viruses, ransomware, hard drive failures, well, I hope you have a backup, or you can send it off to a very expensive data recovery service and wait 2 weeks and hope for the best with no guarantees of what's possible as far as recovery. They don't know what they can recover until they run it through their $1 million worth of equipment. And if something's available, they'll let you know. And if you're lucky, you can get 100% of your data back, but you'll likely be spending 4 figures on that. In most cases, about 4 figures. But that can vary depending on how much data is lost. These little M.2 screws, I like to just get them started here. There's two M.2 slots on this board. This is a B560 motherboard. It's not flashy. This will run 10900K. These people that complain about voltage regulator modules or VRMs, they complain about the CPU not being able to hit its peak core speed at turbo. These people are the very definition of the word nerd in the worst possible way. Caring about, in my opinion, such tiny little minutia without considering for a moment the cost difference to get you there is, to me, a very specific agenda focused on one perspective as being all-knowing and all-true, with no other perspectives being valid. And that would be the worst case of the definition of the word nerd. Not all nerds are defined by that. But I will tell you that when I encounter somebody like that, I get a little bile in my throat. I'm like, yes, you could spend 2.5 times the amount of money that this board cost to get one of those high-end Z-based motherboards, so you can get that little teeny tiny increment, which also generates more heat and may require additional cooling and may result in less reliability and cost more to run. You're not wrong. But for an $89 motherboard, I can put an 11900K on here, and a Mugen 5 will likely keep it cool because it's not hitting those really high momentary speeds that's not meant to be sustained, and therefore doesn't generate that level of heat, and also doesn't consume that much electricity. So if we're looking at performance over the long haul, this is faster in those cases. When we talk about reliability, it sort of becomes a tortoise versus the hare. Out of the gate, side by side, the more expensive motherboard is going to run it hotter and faster. But 2 years later, how many repairs will that board have needed, and how many repairs will this board have needed? That's where your test is. And when you multiply one board to, now let's do 100 of these and 100 of those, and then let's run them for 2 years, and then let's analyze how many times a tech had to be sent out to repair one of these 100 and one of those 100, and then you multiply the cost differential by 100, it's not some little tiny thing anymore. So when I'm working as a business, I'm working on a bigger scale, and what matters to me is that my customers are going to be happy. And for my customers to be happy, I have to stay in business. If my customers aren't happy, I'm not going to stay in business. And if my customers are happy, I better be making enough money that I don't go bankrupt. Because let's face it, if I sell a customer a $1,500 computer for $1,000, they're going to love me. They're going to say, you're the most amazing guy I've ever met. I can't believe you're going to give me a $1,500 computer for $1,000. And then 2 months later, they have a problem with it, and they call me, and it says, the number you've called has been disconnected or is no longer in service. I'm not their buddy anymore. And it's because of them, potentially, that I went out of business, right? That I allowed somebody to knowingly buy something from me that is costing me $500 to sell it to them. Not to mention the labor, right? Not to mention the time on the phone to convince them to buy it. There's never that consideration. I go to a restaurant, and the restaurant screws the order up. It's a restaurant I really like. They go, listen, your meal's on us today. I'm like, well, no, that's not right. It's fine. You can remake the meal. Oh, yeah, we're remaking it, but everybody else at the table got served. You have to wait. It's unacceptable. So your meal, we'll pay for it. I said, look, I like the restaurant. I didn't come here looking for a free meal. And if I come back next month to eat here and the doors are closed and the place is gone, I'm going to be upset. So I want you to charge me for my meal because I want this business to stay in business because I want to eat here again. If you want to give me a little discount, 10%, something like that, fine. But absolutely no. So this happened at a restaurant where a cockroach crawled up my leg while I was sitting at the table. And as the waiter came over, I got up because I saw something moving on my leg, and it scurried across the floor, and the waiter took a minute to figure out what was going on, and he stepped on it. And there are other people dining all around me, and created quite the spectacle. As far as I can tell, the cockroach didn't get on any. There was no food delivered to the table yet, and it was on my pant leg. It wasn't inside my pant; it was on the outside. It's a cockroach. It's not gonna bite you. It was just shocking, unexpected, and I reacted by getting up and sort of kicking my leg and having it scurry. And he comes over and he says, "Your meal's on us today." And I said, well, that's not necessary. And some people might plant a cockroach or something to get a free meal. And I didn't want him thinking that was even a possibility. I said, "Hey man, it's not your fault. It happens. Don't worry about it." "Oh, no. So the manager comes over. Manager says, "Look, I am absolutely not going to allow you to pay for your meal. This is embarrassing. We just had pest control here. I have no idea how that happened. And I absolutely refuse to allow you to pay for your meal." I said, "Okay." And I took the price of the meal and I gave it to the waiter as a tip. So if you like a business and you want it to stay in business, don't try to get them to sell you something for less than it cost them. Usually when a business is doing that, it's close to closing the doors. That's a big red light. The minute a business has to start selling product at like fire sale prices, it's usually a last-ditch effort to liquidate assets either before your creditors come and collect it, or as sort of a last gasp that maybe you can generate enough revenue to just get by the bills one more month. And that is what you're condoning if you take advantage of those deals. Maybe not so much with the big corporations, but especially with small businesses. So I guess I'm in a unique position that I have a small business, and I see that as a big red alert. And I won't take advantage of small businesses like that. And I prefer to give my business to small businesses anytime I can, rather than having some large corporate entity profit. If I have an option to eat at a franchise owned by a corporation or a restaurant that's run by a family, I'm going to pick that family restaurant almost every time because I want to support that small business. But I'm a little biased because I am a small business. But a couple of contributions have come in. And let me see, what have I missed? Did I miss a bunch here? Let me see. Wilhelm Gordon contributes $10. Thank you, Wilhelm, again. Boomhauer 100 with $2. Says we won't get a Raid Shadow Legends sponsored video. Oh, they're asking. I get those emails. Yeah, I get a lot of like phone portable games, I'm like, I'm not doing those. One Cav Viper contributes $3. Thank you. Armando Garcia says hello. One Cav Viper says his name stands for 1st Cavalry Division. Okay. I guess that makes a little bit more sense. Hey, there's Marvin Jameson in the chat room. Says, howdy, brother vet. Always good to see Marvin. There's Thomas Backenstow. Thomas has ordered 2 computers from me in the past. Thomas says, Carrie built me an awesome rig for $2,000 and it's great. My specs, and you can't find a faster and then it trails off. I appreciate you, Thomas. Thank you. Our money, Randy Reed said, our money said he would take the computer on your desk. That's a $4,500 computer. Not too many people are willing to pay. That's just the price of parts, right? That's if I build it for free. That's $4,500 in parts. So if he wants to give me $4,500 for it, hit me up. I'll sell it. Armando Garcia contributes $5. He says, incredibly grateful to be here. I just opened a new, bigger location. PC repair / fitness center. Wow, that's a pretty cool combo. He says it's 3,500 square feet. I'm going to email you pictures soon. Thanks, Uncle Kerry. Armando was a fitness instructor when COVID hit and the gym had to close. He was going to be homeless. And through watching the videos here, it inspired him to start trying to do computer repair to earn a living, at least until the gym could reopen. And then when gyms did reopen, people just weren't coming back. So it's obvious his heart and his passion are mostly in physical fitness. And then it's kind of a secondary thing for him to build computers. And now he's combining those two things together, which I think is a wonderful idea. You don't see that every day. It's a unique offering. And good on you for thinking out of the box and, keeping up the good fight to stay in business, doing what you got to do to keep income coming in. There's definitely an inspirational story there that we can all learn from. Tapaya Kuosma contributes €5. Kerry, he says, thank you for your work here. You taught me so much and networked me with all these great people. We have an amazing community here, and I'm certainly glad you're a part of it. And thank you for supporting the channel. Thank you for your contribution. Randy Burton contributes $2. Thank you, Randy. Make sure Randy is blue. Mike Quinton with a $30 contribution says, I've been following your channel since the kitchen days. Question. 2 V4 sticks of RAM, does it matter what speed-wise, and does the memory controller care? Oh, 2 versus 4 sticks of RAM. So I already have a quick tip video on this. I'm going to show you guys how you can find some of my older videos, which we can do. Let me bring up a different browser. And we'll go to YouTube. I'll use Microsoft Edge because I'm signed into YouTube on Chrome, and I want you to see. I want to display on the screen what you're likely to see, not what the owner of the web page sees or the channel. So let me share the Edge screen here, which I have to go into OBS and change my properties. Bring up Edge. Okay, that should bring up Edge. And so while we're on Edge, we could type in Kerry Holzman. It's one word. If you notice my channel name, there's no space in it. And then we'll just put in the word RAM. And you've got a lot of questions and answers about RAM here. Can you have too much? How much do you need? Should you use all of your RAM slots? This is that 2 versus 4. You'll see that's a 2-minute video. You could click on that and watch it, and it explains it. And these are all videos with the word RAM somehow associated with them. Are you causing a slowdown in your RAM's performance? Here's what you need to know about RAM speed, tweaking your RAM timings. I think all of this would be of interest to you, and I would recommend you check those videos out. So I appreciate the question and the support. I have to find my way back to the chat room. Too many windows open. There we are. So yeah, check those out, Mike, and thank you again for supporting the channel. Ian Gooch contributes 10 pounds. Thank you as always, Ian. Appreciate your continued support. And there's Marty OL with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Marty. Captain Blinsky contributes $5. David Tracy contributes 20. Make sure David is blue in here. Captain Blinsky already is, so thank you guys, both of you, for, again, supporting what I'm doing here. I appreciate you. I think I got everybody. Did I miss anybody? If I missed you, please let me know in the chat. Things are moving rather quickly here today, so I wanted to just put the NVMe drive in before I was distracted. Had a squirrel moment. Using a 1 terabyte Intel 665p. So here's another one of those examples. The solid state drives, lately they've been really going down in price. I'm seeing 2 terabyte drives, whereas before, if it was $100 a terabyte for an NVMe drive, I consider that a good price. I'm starting to see them now at the $160 price point when they're on sale from other manufacturers. And I'm also seeing previously inexpensive drives going up. I don't know why. But this drive should be about $100, and on Amazon today it's nearly $150, I think. I don't know why. Luckily for me, I bought 4 or 5 of them when they were under $100 because I knew they would never go bad. It's still a risk because the price of SSDs, it fluctuates just like gasoline. And I just figured it's not going to fluctuate by more than $100. So that's mitigating my risk of loss versus not having the inventory and paying the price the day I need it. That's just a part of the risk I assume if I'm building computers and I have to source the parts. That's why previously I've always let the customers buy their own parts. But what happened was I got sick and tired of people ordering the wrong parts that we agreed on, or they would order duplicates. I had one guy order the parts twice, and I had to take half my day to go through, first of all, connecting to him remotely to show him how to do an Amazon return for each one of the parts, then get the Amazon RMA information, and then package it all back up and take it back to the UPS store. Some stuff had to go to a different place. Some stuff went to the UPS store. He was upset. I was upset. He swears he didn't do anything wrong. Amazon screwed up. Amazon has never, ever done that. And just the fact that he didn't even understand how to do an Amazon return, I don't think he really understood, you know, the proper ordering process. And I'm not looking to point blame, but what I'm upset about is his refusal to accept blame. That bothered me. It's not like, hey, I could have made a mistake. It's, I didn't make a mistake. And now he's got $1,200 worth of parts twice on a credit card. And that was my mess to clean up, and I was pretty upset about it. And it's happened more than once. And I said, you know what, if I just buy the parts for the systems I want to build, then I can just sell them afterwards. But then that leads me into the situation of part depreciation, as well as, you know, it could go the other way. Parts could go up in value, like these motherboards. But I don't have any interest in just selling parts. I don't want to deal with that support nightmare. So those are the, you know, damned if you do and damned if you don't decisions sometimes you're forced to make if you want to be in this business and you want to be self-employed. The money part of it is, well, if it looks like I'm losing my hair, that's probably why it's happening. The bigger the scale is, the more there's at stake. Bigger profits, bigger losses. You'll notice I'm using a little different of a screwdriver today. I just picked this up at Amazon. I think Ryan out of Nevada sent this to me. It was on an Amazon wish list because I wanted to see if it was any better than the JIS driver. It's okay. I still prefer the JIS driver for these M.2 screws, but this is fully acceptable as well, and it's got a nice rubberized handle. And this should be in my Amazon shop. If not, I'll be sure and add it later. But definitely the JIS driver is in there. But that's our 1 terabyte of storage. And then that we don't need. And these little plastic bags, I'm going to get these out of the way since my workbench is very limited compared to an actual workbench. As I mentioned before, when working in the industry, I would have a workbench that's at least 2 feet longer and would extend out the exact same length on each side so that I could have at least 3, if not 4 computers all going at the same time. Say I need to run a virus scan, that could take a while. So while I'm waiting, I can run Memtest 86, that could take a while. So while that's waiting, I can install Windows or updates, and that could take a while. And so when you're in business, proper business, typically a technician's workbench is surrounded. And you will be working on no less than 2 computers at a time and upwards of 4, possibly more. When I visited Brian Cometa at $300 Data Recovery, he's got, I would estimate, 30 recoveries going on simultaneously because they're very time consuming. And you're not going to have 29 customers wait until the bench is clear. One machine he said he had running for over 30 days trying to recover data. And it just sits in this, and it just occupies that one workstation. But all the other workstations, machines, hard drives are going in and out. And that's why he can do that. He can let that machine run as long as it needs to recover the data, and it doesn't really impact his business much. You can imagine what that investment is in equipment. It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Channel Zero contributes $5 Australian. Says 8-year build. We've got a 10-year-old computer that, well, it could use some more memory, runs as good as new or close enough. Thanks again. Yeah, when I say it's an 8-year build, I think it's reasonable to expect 8 reliable, usable years out of the machine without any upgrades or repairs, statistically. Could it need a repair at 6 years? It could. Could it continue to work for you for 12 years? It could, but I wouldn't expect it to. So it's all about setting expectations, not limitations. Gerard Demonte says, I feel bad I mentioned his hair. Well, I think in life, one thing that will cause hair loss may be genetic and have nothing else to do with anything else, but could also be stress, like extreme amount of stress. It could result in gaining weight, physical illness, hair loss. Stress could be a disease like any other, and oftentimes needs to be treated like that. And how much stress each of us can individually endure varies. It varies. And so I've kind of set my own goal to allow myself to get way busier than I should be because I'm curious what my breaking point is. What I've learned is I don't have a breaking point. Like the amount of work I would need to break isn't possible for me to do. There's not enough room in this building for me to pile in enough work that would cause me to break. But what is happening is there are simple mistakes, there are cracks that are starting to show, and it's like a juggler saying, I wonder how many things I can juggle before I drop everything. Well, I suspect that there is no such thing. I suspect that if you juggle too many things, you'll start dropping more items, but you won't necessarily lose everything you're juggling. Does that make any sense? So just because you juggle 20 items doesn't mean all of a sudden you can't catch any of those 20. No. One's going to squeak by, another one will squeak by, you'll be down to 18. And, maybe another one after that, and you'll figure out what your limit is. But it's not a matter of just completely breaking. It's just where the cracks start to show. when there starts to be extended delays before simple things can get finished. And that's all stress. You know, it's voluntary. I've taken it on, but I've taken it on as my own personal challenge with the understanding that there would be a point where I would break. And I was just curious, what's my breaking point? And that's what I've learned. There is no breaking point. It's just how many items I'm going to drop. I won't drop everything. And then based on that, I need to sort of taper down and say, there's my limit. And I can reasonably set expectations of how many things I can handle at once. But the only way I can figure that out is to handle too many things. I don't know what too many things is until I have too many things. So anyway, that was kind of my own little life experiment. The CPU I'm going to put in here is an Intel 11600K. This is a Core i5. And the K CPUs, they're about 10% faster than non-K CPUs. You don't need a Z-based chipset. You don't need a $250 motherboard. That's ridiculous. If you want high performance, and especially when you can catch the K processors on sale, they might be the same price or just a couple dollars difference from the non-K. The non-K versions, they come with a heatsink, but they're generally loud. And people these days, in my experience, they want a quiet computer. So since we're just going to chuck the heatsink and we're going to replace it with a Mugen 5, we might as well just not buy the heatsink and get the K version of the same processor. So instead of the 11600, let's just go ahead and get the 11600K. We're going to be buying the heatsink either way. That's the logic. Some people online will assume that I paid more for the K chip and that I'm not getting any advantage from the K chip because it's not on a Z chipset. Those people are profoundly ignorant. Because once again, it's that bad definition of the word nerd where they have this myopic and blinded tunnel vision where only their perspective is valid and nobody else's perspective is even so much as considered. So the idea that, number one, I might have paid the same or less for the K processor than you assumed that it cost more without asking me, that's an error in your logic for somebody that claims to be so smart. Number two, the chip itself is faster out of the box without overclocking it. Number three, buying a Z-based motherboard strictly with the foolish logic that you have to with a K processor tells me how limited your experience and knowledge are. It's like you're boasting to the world your limited intelligence and understanding of the technology. And it starts to get under your skin after a while. You're like, really? You didn't really think through what you said, did you? Or you don't really understand what you're talking about. Why would you boast that to the world to see? So it's puzzling to me. And usually I'll just ban those people because they obviously haven't taken into consideration what was actually paid, what the performance boost is, and the fact that the other features that a Z series board would have would be completely a waste of money for my customers. In other words, Z boards do more than allow overclocking. They have perhaps more USB ports, more PCIe lanes, things like that, potentially. And if it makes no difference to the customer, why would I charge the customer the extra $100 for a fancy board they don't need just because it's a K processor that they assume costs more money? It's just weird. It's just weird. There's just one way to look at the world. There's no other perspectives. And I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm going to come to false conclusions, and I'm going to vocalize them across the world so everybody knows my limits in information and knowledge. That's a weird thing to boast about, but okay, ban. Anyway, it's gotten to the point now where it's amusing. It's gotten to the point where it's like, here we go. Here's another one. Here's another person who thinks they're smarter than they are, and they want to prove to the world their misunderstandings. It's very strange. Like, what's in it for them? What's the best that could happen from posting that? Even if everything they say is true, what's the benefit to them? There's only negative things that can happen from posting like that. There is nothing positive. So you think, why do it? I guess people like attention, even if it's the wrong kind. Heatsink. I guess I could put the heatsink on. What it feels like to me, they're talking about, tech enthusiasts and some of the bad advice and understandings they have. What it feels like to me is it's like a real medical PhD doctor watching somebody on YouTube with no doctorate degree offering medical advice with no accountability and no liability. They might be selling supplements that are not proven to do anything by so-called doctors that don't have actual medical degrees but have theological degrees. You can be a doctor in other fields besides medical. So there's Dr. So-and-so coming on to some show on YouTube to promote some elixir that's supposed to cure you from whatever ails you. And I'm like the doctor who's been in practice for 30 years, and I'm watching this and I'm offended. And what offends me worse is when I see the viewers are watching that video and not mine. Like that video has 1 million views and mine has 20,000. And I'm just thinking, this world is messed up, man. This is a weird, messed up world. But, like I said, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I don't claim to know everything. Far be it. I'm learning all the time. But some of the stuff I see on the Tech Enthusiast channels, it's discouraging. And to see how popular they are, it's just like, to me it's deceptive and it's misleading. And I don't know if it's done with intent or just out of ignorance because they just don't know any better. So I'm trying to make a difference by showing you guys there is a difference. There is a different perspective. There is a different logic. And it's up to you guys to weigh which one is more valid to you. That's not for anybody else to decide. But if I can at least get you to acknowledge that there are two perspectives, even if you equate them both of equal value, I'm okay with that. But to consider just the enthusiast perspective, because there's so many of them on YouTube, that's the part that I'm constantly battling. And that's why I continue to do what I do and continue to emphasize work versus fun, and the reasoning and the logic. When you're working at scale, a $10 part difference can be $1,000 if you have to order 100 of them. And if your career is on the line, and your career is how you're paying for your house and your car and feeding your family, listening to an enthusiast talk about it is a little insulting. Sometimes. Not all tech enthusiasts offer impractical advice, but it's very common on YouTube, and not just in computers, but anything at all. And I just think it's important that if you're digesting this content, you understand the kind of content you're watching so that you can give it the weight that it deserves, right? The amount of consideration you should have based on who's providing the information. It may be nothing more than entertainment for you, but it could also be very dangerous, physically, financially, and even mentally. And that concerns me. Perhaps someday, this thing won't sit down. Perhaps someday somebody will come up with a way to hold accountable people that have followed the advice or instruction of an online video or website that causes damage or expenses. Kind of like a review system. That may discourage a lot of the hobbyists, and have them get out of the space. Not that I want them out of the space. They're not all bad. But there's some that have me very concerned. Without liability and without accountability, you're free to give the worst advice and have absolutely zero repercussions, and no viewer would ever know. So you could just have victim after victim after victim after victim as you're gaining subscribers and selling sponsorships. There's no downside except to the poor victims who listened and followed the advice. I have a business. My businesses would be held financially accountable. And then I likely wouldn't have a business anymore. So there's a big difference. We'll use the included scythe screwdriver here just to tighten down these thumb screws onto the CPU brackets. You see how easy this third-party cooler is to put in. I love the Scythe Mugen 5, the Black Edition even more so. I have a lot of customers that have the 200R who still want the black cooler even though they can't see it. They just like knowing it's in there. They like when they take the cover off to blow the dust out of it. It just looks sharp. They're like, hey, can you put the black cooler in there for me? You can't see it. Oh, I know, but I just want it. It's $10 more. Okay, I'll pay it. It's the same install for me. It doesn't install any different. It's literally just black instead of silver. I'm okay with that. Okay. I'm okay with it too. All these extra screws are for other socket types like other Intel chips and other AMD chips, and we won't be using these at all. So I'll set them over there. I've got a couple of fan brackets here. We only need 2 of them. If I were just working to build this and we weren't talking, say I was left alone, maybe I have a little music playing in the background, I could have this built with Windows installing in about 20 minutes. And that's not me working fast, but that's me working, paying attention, not being distracted, working methodically. All the parts on the board, CPU, RAM, heatsink, in the case with the power supply, with a Windows 10 flash drive, 20 minutes. So this is not as time consuming as I make it out to be. I just really enjoy slowing down, answering your questions, and sharing some stories about things that have blindsided me in my business, with the hopes that if you're thinking of going into business, doing this kind of work, that you'll be better prepared than I was and can already have a contingency in place to deal with certain circumstances that I've warned you about, rather than I experienced unforeseen. I figure if it was unforeseen for me, it it might be unforeseen for you too. And if nothing else, it might just be interesting. I'm going to take the documentation. I put all the spare parts into the motherboard box, including this extra fan brackets. And I'm reluctant to put the heatsink onto the CPU right now because it complicates getting this motherboard into a Corsair 200R. That upper left corner of the board is going to be very, very tight. So I think we'll go ahead and leave this off for right now. And I'll set the fan brackets aside. I've got to get one of those little plastic standoffs because these motherboards from Gigabyte have this extra mounting hole that very few cases I've worked with ever have this extra mounting hole. So I have these little plastic spacers that I've got since we used to use these on motherboards in the 1990s, and I just collected them because I used them all the time. I always needed another one. And since I've got them, I'm going to just put it in the unused mounting hole. If you don't have these, you don't have to buy them. Just leave that mounting hole empty. As long as all the other ones are being used, the board's not going to go anywhere. It won't hurt anything. But since I have them, this is a nice way to get rid of them and make me feel good about it. So that's just going to go in this mounting hole right here, which again is just not really used, as far as I know, by any other motherboard manufacturer and is typically not acknowledged by most case manufacturers. I'm going to leave that out. We'll leave that out. Yeah, I guess I can get the 200R out of the box, and we can go ahead and mount this motherboard as it is into the case. Then I can put in the power supply, wire it up, put on the heatsink, and then put in the RAM, and then we can install Windows on it. It should be that's it. So it's my talking that takes all the time, not the actual work. It's about 20 minutes of work. Now this person is going to want to add a graphics card to this machine. So for that reason, we're going to install a 750 watt power supply, not modular. People always lose their modular cables, and there's no reason to use a modular on a case that has no window. People use modular cables to hide the cabling. There's no reason to hide the cabling on a system you can't see through. And in a business environment, nobody knows where the cables went because employees change, and whoever took delivery of the computers put the cables somewhere, and 2 years went by, and now we need the cables, and that person's long gone, and nobody knows anything. This is the first they've heard about it. So that means we got to order cables. Whatever job we had scheduled to do that day isn't going to happen that day. When the cables that we order arrive, then we can reschedule to go back out to the client's location to do the work that we were hired to do to begin with days earlier. As a result, I'm not a fan of modular power supplies. But if you're a hobbyist and enthusiast, you're building your own computer and that's what you want, then that's your problem when you misplace your cables. Or maybe you won't. But again, it's very different at scale. I'm going to take this Corsair 200R out of the box. I'm just cutting the tape on the box right now. I'm a little out of the camera frame, but I'll keep talking to you just so you know you're not looking at a dead feed. Now I've got the box lid cut open. I'm going to tip the box upside down and use gravity to assist in getting the case out of the box. I recommend you do that when you're ever trying to remove a large item. Let the box do the work for you. These cases are packed usually with a piece of styrofoam at each end and then wrapped in a large piece of plastic to avoid any scratching. And so I'm just simply removing all of that so I can place the case right up here. Voila, Corsair 200R. I have a bunch of boxes in my path I keep stepping on. Set those over there. And this case box I'll put over here. I am running out of room. Oh, this place has just got me buried. Okay. And then we've got our documentation for the case, which I don't need, but I'll give to the customer. So this will go in the motherboard box. I want to look through the chat to see what I've been missing here. Yes, if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, the thumbs up button. That just lets me know you like content like this and you want to see more of it. Just a single click, it'll cost you nothing. It'll take less than 2 seconds of your time. It's a nice thing to do for any YouTube content creator, even if you don't think they deserve it. It's still a nice gesture. What else do I see in the chat here? Nick James says, what are the odds of my i7 12700 being defective? Well, in 30 years of being in the industry, I think I've seen 4 or 5 bad CPUs. And I've probably seen 20, 30,000 CPUs. Let's count it down the middle, 25,000 CPUs. Let's just round the number up to 6. 6 bad CPUs out of 25,000. Whatever those odds are. Not likely. Possible, but not likely. Unless, of course, you sourced your CPU from a questionable source. You bought it off eBay or Craigslist. In other words, you didn't buy it from a retailer, or you bought something used. You didn't buy it new in the box. So I'm making some assumptions here that you bought from a reputable retailer. AC's Drafting contributes $50. He said, the weight of this might not be much, but I hope it helps. Cheers all, and happy Friday. Thank you, AC. I appreciate your contribution. Very generous. It adds up, believe me. I appreciate you. Brian wants to know if it's okay to leave a laptop on 24/7 without closing the lid and never hibernating it. I don't recommend it. Laptops are very, very small and have very limited cooling. They are not intended to be left on 24/7. A laptop is not a server. A laptop is not a workstation. A laptop is a portable workstation, and as such has limitations and sacrifices that have to be made in order to have this technology portable that you can take it with you. You will likely run into overheating problems if you leave a laptop on. You can leave it on once in a while, but I personally wouldn't recommend leaving it on 24/7. Same goes for a tablet or even an external hard drive. These things are meant to be used and turned off when they're done being used. You don't usually have a problem like with a cell phone like you would with a laptop. The cell phones don't have those kind of processors that generate that kind of heat, but even sometimes a cell phone will shut itself off if it gets too hot. But no, I have styrofoam that's sticking to me. I don't recommend leaving a laptop on 24/7. There are times when my laptop is processing videos and things where I leave it on overnight and then I use it the whole next day. But I don't usually leave it on 2 nights in a row, and certainly not 3 nights in a row. And doing so wouldn't hurt it, but if I just never turned it off, eventually I'd probably have a heat-related problem. Alec55 says, I've got an 11700K on a B560 board as well. It's a great board. I'm just trying to catch up in the chat room if you're wondering what I'm doing. Sergio wants to know if that is a Mugen 5 Black Edition. Yes, it is. Okay, so I guess I can go ahead and start taking the panels off and prepping the case. And yeah, we can use that other driver. See how it does. I'll just use my bit from the other driver. And we'll leave all this stuff in here, like so. Hey, my magnet matches the color. Now on the Milwaukee, I can just push the bit in, and the clutch, is it the clutch? No, it's the chuck. The chuck will accept it. This one, you got to lift the chuck up, then the bit slips in, and now the bit's locked in place. Make sure that my torque, we'll put that on 3. Everything else looks good. Got to get used to those paddles. Much prefer switches. The rotation speed is a bit slower. But if you're new with an electric driver, better that it goes slower, because they can go so fast you cross thread the screw and it's too late. Yeah, this feels about half the speed, but that's okay. It's also 1/4 the price. I'm going to take these screws and they're going to go in this motherboard box. You see how I'm running out of space? This is what I'm talking about. The bench is way too small for this kind of work. Certainly not what it was like working at Intel and other places I've worked as a tech. My bench at Intel was 20 feet long. At least 20 feet long. Although, to be fair, they didn't call where I worked an office. They called it a lab. So instead of picturing an office, picture a laboratory. I'm going to move these panels off to the side. I don't want to accidentally knock them with my feet and scratch or dent them. So we'll set them off to the side. And again, keep our workbench as free as possible of obstacles. I'm going to set the case down onto its side. And I guess I'll put the I/O shield in. That was easy. Should I put in the motherboard or the power supply? think I'll go ahead and put the motherboard in. Since I've already got the case laying down, I wouldn't put the power supply in with the case laying down. The screws that I need to secure the motherboard are in a little cardboard box here in the case that I was in such a hurry I didn't take it out. So I'll do that now, which is a little tricky when I've got the case laying down because I've got to push up on the little box as I hit the release lever, and then the box comes out. And that's going to have, as I mentioned, the screws we need to secure the motherboard down now that we have it in place. So all these screws, except for one bag, are just spare parts that we'll leave in the motherboard box for any future upgrades or repairs that the client may encounter during the course of ownership over years and years and years, likely, of ownership. And there's nothing else that I need in this box right now. Again, I want to free up as much bench space as possible, so I'll just set that box off to the side. I'll use these nylon zip ties later when it comes to the cable management portion of the build, which happens all the way at the end. Oh, and our Corsair 200R documentation. Let me go ahead and put that in the box so I don't have to worry about forgetting about it. And in this bag of screws, we've got our motherboard mounting screws, and I'm going to need 5 of them. 2 across the top, 1 in the middle, 2 on the bottom. And that's the same with every 360, 460, and 560 build I've ever done on this channel. Okay. That sound, I'm assuming you can hear that. That's the clutch. The Milwaukee has an auto-off clutch, meaning the driver shuts off. Cheaper electric drivers, they make this clicking sound, and it just goes quick. And the spindle isn't turning because the inside clutch is being hit, and it generates that sound. You often will hear it at like a place that does tires for a car. You'll hear the that's the clutch being hit. I'm a little spoiled with that Milwaukee driver. I like the auto-off clutch because it makes it very obvious when you've reached your torque setting. The driver just shuts off. Whereas this one, the spindle just stops and you hear the clicking sound. But we're also looking at, you know, a nearly $140 price difference. And the Milwaukee doesn't come with any bits. Actually, I think the Milwaukee comes with like 1 straight and 1 Phillips, and that's it. I'm curious if the clutch setting of 3 on this is equivalent to the clutch setting of 3 on the Milwaukee. Let me just check and see if the Milwaukee turns at all on these screws I put in. Nope. You hear the click and it shuts off because it's already at its torque setting. So that means they agree that they're at 3 or that it's greater than 3. In either case, it'll be really close, and I'm okay with it. Yeah, I forgot about the auto-off clutch is kind of a pretty special feature. You don't see it too often except on higher-end electric drivers. And I've been using high-end electric drivers for such a long time, I'm a little spoiled. It's like, oh yeah, I remember these. I remember a regular clutch that just makes noise. I think the Panasonic driver was the first one I've ever used that had an auto-off clutch, and I like it so much, never going back. I had a customer many, many years ago who was looking over my shoulder when I was doing the work, and the screwdriver hit the clutch, you know, it was going grrrr. Customer's like, what are you doing, man? You're stripping out my screws. Like, it's not stripping out your screws. That's the sound of the driver. You should be turning those by hand. Never let customers watch you work. Anyway, got the motherboard installed. I'll show you what that looks like right now. Now I can go ahead and put the power supply in. Documentation, I'll put that in the motherboard box. Inside of the box, in this lid, there are 4 screws to mount the power supply to the case. You could also use some of the screws that come with the case. I prefer to use the screws that come with the power supply unless they don't match the color of the case. Some people are like, who the hell looks at the color of the screws? You'd be surprised. This is our power cable. I don't want to forget it, so I'll go ahead and put it in the box as well. Be surprised how something like that results in a support call. Hey, I just got the computer. I'm all excited to use it, but there's no way for me to plug it in. Oops. So now I've learned right away, put that stuff in the box. You don't have to think about it. Here's our 750 watt EVGA power supply. These have been very reliable for me. They're very inexpensive. I'm not exactly sure why manufacturers charge you more for a higher wattage power supply, at least in the percentages that they do. I can tell you right now, EVGA makes more money off a 750 watt power supply, as does every power supply maker, than they do off a 500 watt. And sure, some of the components might be a little bit more expensive, but not that much more. So bear in mind, if you're one of those people that wants a 1,000 watt power supply, 1,200 watt, 1,500 watt, the more you get power-wise, the more disparate the price becomes. So if you took a 500 watt power supply, any 500 watt power supply, and you take the price you pay and divide it so you can figure out what's your price per watt, then do the same with a 750, a 1,000, a 1,200, 1,500. The price per watt, it's not like this far apart. It's bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Higher profit margins on those higher end parts. So do know you will be paying substantially more per watt when you buy a more powerful power supply. Also included though is usually a longer warranty. So it may not be just that you're paying more, but you may also be getting upwards of a 10-year warranty, which may be worth paying more for. I haven't seen any of these go bad yet, knock on wood. I use a lot of the 500 watt white EVGAs. I think I've used well over 100 of those. I think I've had one bad one. So I'm good with that. Like I say, you're gonna have support calls. There's nothing you can do about it, but I do try to minimize them as much as possible. Customers are never happy, and I'm never happy doing the work for free. Okay, so I got my screws right here. When I put the Milwaukee on slow speed, the spindle, I think the Milwaukee is about 300 RPM in slow mode and 600 RPM in fast mode. This feels like it's maybe 250. It feels a little bit slower than even the Milwaukee slow mode. But again, if you're new to electric drivers, you're better off not having that kind of power because it's so easy to strip out a screw. And I will say, you see the way I'm holding this? Because I've got to have my thumb on that paddle. It's like I'm holding on to half of it. Whereas if you see me hold on to the Milwaukee, when I'm using it, I've got a firm grip. So I don't feel like I can hold this as well. And this does feel heavier. It feels top heavy. The Milwaukee feels more balanced. If you use it as much as I use it, this stuff matters. If you're just using it on occasion, you probably wouldn't notice a difference. But it has absolutely wider. And since I'm not a particularly large fellow, my hands are much more comfortable on this more of a lightsaber hilt, whereas this is oblong. I'm not exactly sure who has oblong fingers. I mean, clearly I can wrap my hand around it, but it doesn't make it easy then to reach that paddle. If it was a push button, I just had to lean on it, that would be so much easier. I think that's the part I hate the most, if there was anything to hate about the driver, is the fact they went with a paddle. I much prefer the push button. So much easier. So much easier. I also like that my battery strength is right where I can see it. On this one, you have to, turn it around, hit the button, and as soon as you let go of the button, the light turns off. So you got to hold the button and read it. See, as soon as I let it go. Anyway, for $37.99 though, that's a bargain. I want to make sure these are just a little tighter than the standard torque setting, because the power supply is about the heaviest thing you're putting in your system for most people. And especially if you're going to ship it, you don't want the screws to loosen through vibration. And if your power supply breaks free, it's going to destroy everything inside your computer case. Ask me how I know. Tammy says, hello, isn't my cousin amazing? Enjoy his show. Carrie, miss you and love you. Hey, Tammy. I'm surprised to see Tammy in here. We can make Tammy blue. I know who Tammy is. Hey, I have a viewer who I have actually met in real life. All right, let me clear this stuff out of here so I can, once again, work without all these obstacles in my way. And let me turn this way, and I'll come around here so you can have a little better view of this part. I'm just going to hook up two cables. I need to hook up. I'm not worried about this rear fan, although, you know what? I can just plug it in. I don't need to, but I might as well just get it out of my way. So we'll just plug that in up here. And then we've got the 8-pin CPU power, which is difficult to reach when that giant Mugen 5 cooler's here. So we'll do that as well as the 24-pin CPU power cable. And I can plug in all the umbilicals like the power switch, power LED, the front port audio, and the front port USB 3.0. That's easy to do now. So we can get that out of the way. As for the rest of these cables, we'll run the big 24-pin out the side here, or out the back and then up the side rather. And all these umbilicals are in my way. They're got a wire tie that's holding them in position. This will be a good time to remove that wire tie. And then I can pull these cables through and get them out of my way. There we go. Okay. Power cable. Bring that around, and we'll plug this in right up here. It's the only connector that is this big. It only plugs in one place, and it only plugs in one direction. It's really hard to screw this up. Usually where the mistake is made is people don't seat the cable firmly, and so it's not seated all the way into the socket and doesn't make a complete connection with all 24 pins. That's the most common mistake I see made with this connector. The smaller CPU connector, the most common mistake that I witness from people online helping people diagnose on a new build is they just simply don't plug it in. Oh, I didn't know I needed to plug that in. Yeah, your system's not going to boot without it. So this is not optional, and that's an 8-pin, although on some motherboards may only be a 4-pin. But more and more we're seeing the 8-pin used. I'm going to push it out the back. We'll come around here and we're going to move this behind the motherboard to hide the cabling, and we'll go right up into this corner like so, and then we can pull it through. Again, there's no other connector that looks like this anywhere else on your motherboard. On your power supply, you'll have a connector that looks kind of like it for your graphics card, but it'll be a 6-pin with an additional 2-pin. The motherboard connector is a 4-pin with an additional 4-pin. So both ways you get a total of 8, but they're split differently. And they won't plug in correctly because the clips are moved off to the side on your video card connector, whereas they're in the center on your motherboard power. The motherboard power connector usually is labeled as CPU, and a video card power connector is usually labeled PCIe. So that hooks up that cable that I was worried about the heatsink being in the way. So with that, you can see how we're going to route that. It's going to look nice and pretty. With that done, I can go ahead and hook up the remainder of these cables, which only takes a second, a few seconds. But we'll put the USB 3 cable right there. There's only one connector on this motherboard. Sometimes some boards have two. It doesn't matter which one you use. It's got a notch in the plug, and that prevents you from plugging it in backwards. And it's just gravity that locks it in place. Friction holds it. This is our front port audio connector. Again, there's no other connector on the motherboard that looks like this with a pin. One single pin is blocked. That connector usually goes in this bottom corner of the board, so for that reason, I'm going to try and route the cable as close as I can get to this lower left section of the board so that the cable management and hiding the cable is going to be easier. Look at the connector and see where the missing pin is. The missing pin on this motherboard is on the bottom row, so I'll make sure the blocked pin is on the bottom row. It won't go on any other way. And I give it a little wiggle and push until I feel it seat into the socket. And then I'll usually grab the excess cable and kind of tuck it under, again, just for looks. The rest of these cables we don't need today, but if the customer is going to add a GPU and some hard drives, they're going to want these. And usually I'll just take a nylon zip tie and tie them straight down, and that way they don't go flapping around when the computer is being shipped, because those flapping around cables can cause a lot of damage. So just a zip tie, and we can run the zip tie through these holes. A lot of people think these holes are here for a fan, and while the manufacturers offer that as an option, I don't use those holes for that reason. I think putting a fan at the bottom of the case is one of the dumbest things you can possibly do. For me, I use those holes as a place to route the nylon zip ties through. Why is putting a fan at the bottom of the case one of the dumbest things I think you can do for your computer? Well, if you're building a vacuum cleaner, go ahead. But all you're going to do is you're going to bring in all the dirt and dust from the floor, and you're going to interfere with your airflow. Your airflow should be coming in from the front and going out through the back or the top, not both. The back or the, so if you've got a radiator up here, you don't need this rear fan. You blow in the air out the top or blow the air out the back. If your additional fans are blowing air up, you are interfering with the flow of air and you're causing it to not cool as effectively. It would be like, if you can picture water, you've got water flowing into the front and it's flowing out the back. Now you're taking another stream of water and you're pushing it straight up into the stream that's going this way, and it's disrupting that airflow, and it can leave you with a spot where the air isn't really moving and things start to overheat, and you're like, I have so many fans, how is it overheating? Because you've put in too many fans. You've got air buffeting against air. If you put a fan pushing air this way and a fan pushing air this way, where's it going? It's going to hit the middle and it's going to stop. So you're going to have some air moving through the front and the back, but nowhere near as much. And without that airflow, you're not going to have the expected cooling. Plus, all those additional fans bring in more dust and debris. They add noise, and it's one more point of failure you will eventually have to deal with. So, a couple of fans, good. More than that, not so good. A couple of aspirin, good for a headache. The whole bottle, not so much. All right, I think we can put thermal compound down here, and then we can put the heat sink on, and then we can drop the RAM in, and we can begin our Windows 10 install, except I haven't plugged in this power switch and LEDs, did I? No, I didn't. Let's do that real quick. That's the last part of our front port umbilicals that we have to deal with. I try to figure out how I'm going to route these cables. Oh, look at that. Am I going around it or am I going through it? So if I do this now, I won't have to redo it later. All right, here we go. All right, so always on this bottom connector, always starting from the left side, always starting with the hard drive LED, which on the Corsair 200R, we want the writing on the connector facing down. That puts the positive wire on the first pin on the left side. Do not connect the two rows together. Do not connect the two rows together. That's the most common issue I see with the front port umbilicals, is somebody gets it in their head that these connectors go on up and down. They go side by side. And no matter how many times I say it, I'll have somebody email me, usually about once every 6 weeks. I followed your video right to the letter and my system won't even turn on. Send me a picture, let me see. And the first thing I see are these connectors on vertically. I'm like, well, you didn't follow my video to the letter. I did everything you showed. No, you didn't. I never showed those connectors going on vertically. They go on horizontally. You do not connect the two rows together, at least not with the boards I show. I need to grab my glasses so I can see. And these, this area of the board is kind of dark, and on some cases this can be really hard to get in here and get your hands in here. But what I like on this 200R is you can see it's relatively spacious. We have room for optical drives, 4 hard drives, 4 solid state drives, room for a full-size graphics card. It's very, very flexible. Also, all the drive bays are toolless. You don't even have to use any screws. You just lock the drives in place with a lever that's built into the case. Okay, so the power LED is going to go directly over the hard drive LED. Positive over positive, negative over negative. Positive's always closest to the edge. Then this is, let's see, that's our power switch. I don't want that yet. This is our reset switch. That goes beside the hard drive LED, right next to it. And then directly above that and right next to the power LED is where our power switch goes. And that's pretty universal for most ATX and micro ATX motherboards. The mini ITX changes it up a little bit with location, but it's all been pretty much the same for the last 15, 20 years. Hasn't really changed. Why that's not just one universal connector, I have no idea. It should be by now. These gray slots right here, you'll see you've got 2 black and 2 gray. These are our RAM slots. I'm going to go ahead and use the 2 gray ones. And I've just opened up those connectors. But before I do that, I think I should go ahead and put the heatsink on. So I'll put some thermal compound down and we'll secure the heatsink down. And this just takes a moment. This is only 2 screws that hold the heatsink down. I'll get this driver out of my way for now. We have a brand new tube of thermal compound I'll use. And we'll just put, kind of have to eyeball as much as I think I'm going to need. You're better off putting on too little and adding more as needed. It's very difficult if you put too much on and it gets super messy. Now, rather than squishing the thermal compound down and hoping for the best that it's spread evenly, I prefer to spread it evenly using a nitrile glove. Powder-free nitrile glove. And I'm just going to finger paint with it. I want the entire surface of that CPU covered in thermal compound, thick enough that I can't see through it, but not so thick that when I place the heatsink on top of it, it's going to ooze out the sides and make a mess. So you kind of have to exercise your own judgment here. If you use too little or you use too much, your cooler will not work effectively. It will work, and that's why people can debate that like they do online, because there's no easy way to prove until you take it off, until you take the cooler off, if you put too much or too little on. So people can speculate whatever their agenda is and then shove that down your throat whether you like it or not. And there's no way to really shut those people up. So just ignore them. I don't know what's wrong with people, but the passion for a thermal compound application is unjustifiable because it's not that important. If you get it in the ballpark, you're going to be fine. If something makes a degree or 2 or 3 difference, doesn't matter. If 2 or 3 degrees makes a difference in your world, well, I think they make pills that can help you with that now. But anyway, except for those really far extremists that are doing massive overclocking, for the rest of us, it's running within its temperature range that the engineers designed it for. So it doesn't run any better or any worse if it's 2 or 3 degrees hotter or colder. 0 difference. I notice, with cars having digital fuel gauges, they'll tell you how many approximate miles you've got left to the tank of gas. Very rarely do I see a digital temperature gauge on a car, at least not on the dashboard. It's usually it's a gauge. It says C for cold on one end and H for hot in the other end. And if you ask where's that gauge supposed to be, you'll be told it should be around the middle. If it's a little below the middle, if it's a little above the middle, that's the operational range of the engine. So it's just weird to see the unhealthy obsession of technochondria from a vocal but small group of individuals who are fixated on minutia that doesn't matter in the real world. And I just want to make you aware of it, because you will encounter it. You probably already have. And why they care, I have no idea. I don't know why they're so passionate about it. But I've got the heatsink on here, and I've removed that little plastic cover from the bottom that keeps it nice and clean. We save that until we're ready to install it. We want that surface of the heatsink and the surface of the CPU to be as clean as possible. Once again, it's not going to make a world of difference if you get your fingerprints on it, but it will lessen the properties of the thermal compound to extract heat. Not totally diminish it, but I mean, if we can have it run a little better by keeping it clean, seems like a reasonable thing to do. I've had people email me and said, I accidentally touched the bottom of my heatsink of my CPU, what do I do? Just finish building your computer. Who cares? If you're really worried about it, grab some isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip and wipe it clean. Let the alcohol evaporate, and it's clean again. But if you want to run your own test, if it bothers you that much, I would encourage you to take your heatsink off, rub your fingers all over it, and put it back on again, and measure your temperature difference. It's not going to be very much. All right, I can put the fan on to the heatsink. Go ahead and remove this wire tie. Once I have this fan on and plugged into the board, I can turn the machine on and start our Windows 10 installation process. Oh, I got to put the RAM in. Okay, then I put the RAM in. Then I can install Windows 10. But I'm fully expecting it's going to post just fine. All these parts are brand new. It's pretty rare that I ever get a part that's dead or bad. It does very rarely happen, but it is very, very rare. Maybe one system out of 50 gets one bad part. Maybe not even that. I suppose that's the beauty in the automation of manufacturing. We've pretty much removed human beings from all of this manufacturing. So those machines run 100% of every minute of every day. They are 24 hours. They never take a sick day. They never have a bad day. On occasion, and this is very rare, when somebody loads the machine with parts, if they installed the part into the loader backwards, then every single board comes out with the part installed backwards. Usually that's checked before it ships. I know there was a recent case of a motherboard where a chip was installed 180 degrees from how it should, and somehow it slipped through. So there were two mistakes, right? The first mistake is someone loaded the machine that feeds the parts. They loaded the parts backwards or rotated. And then the quality control apparently was checking it against a bad board, because the quality control wouldn't have allowed that through if it were set correctly. So someone must have manufactured the board, assumed it worked, and then said, okay, this is our board 0. Every board needs to match this one. And so as the boards were coming out with the part installed backwards, they were passing QC and then going out to customers. As a result, they had a recall on the board. I don't remember the make or model of the board. I know Gamers Nexus did a great journalistic piece on exposing that and even identifying the problem to the manufacturer. I was very impressed. It's very rare that something like that happens. Anybody remember what that board was? I'm just going to put these little hangers onto the fan, and then I'm going to attach the fan. I'll cable manage this later. Same with the rear case fan. I'm going to deal with that later. And then, let's see. There it goes. And then we put the RAM in. For the RAM, this is T-Force Vulcan Z. This is 32 gigs of RAM. This sells for about $110 in the gray color and $120 in the red color, because, you know, the red color is faster. Any way a manufacturer can get a few extra bucks out of you, even if it means offering a different color, and then they assign that a value based on how many people are choosing one color over the other, the color everybody wants is now going to be costing more. The price of manufacturing it is exactly the same, but it's just another way a manufacturer can make an extra buck, and you guys will pay it. So be aware, know what you're buying. If you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. You'll see I always bend the plastic. Don't bend the RAM trying to get it out of the plastic container. You can damage the RAM. You can damage the container all day. Nobody cares. So always bend the container. There's one. There's two. That's it. We can fire it up and begin our Windows 10 install. Or even, check for a BIOS update. I suppose I should do that first. So let me come around and we'll give it some power. We don't want to plug any internet into it during the Windows 10 install, or it will require us to create a Microsoft account. If you have a Microsoft account and you don't mind, then by all means, go right ahead. Because these are not computers for me, I'm not going to sign into my Microsoft account and then give it to my customer. That would be insane. As such, I am highly motivated to create a local account, and then the customer can keep it that way. They can change the local account, or they can make their own offline or online account at any time. Nothing I'm doing changes that. Keyboard and mouse. And if we come around here, I'll hit the power button. No, I always have the power supply switch in the off position. We'll flip that to the on position. That's just for safety. Now if I hit this button, it should just turn on, if I can find it. There it goes. That should be turning on. And let me go over to the HDMI input on OBS, which should be this button right here. Now it says no signal, and if the machine posts, and this could take, oh, there it goes. I was going to say it could take up to 90 seconds. It's going to have nothing to boot to because our solid state drive is brand new and has no operating system on it. So what I'm expecting is the system to recognize right now it's started to post and it restarted as it adjusted for the CPU and RAM that it has trained. And then with those training settings, it restarts again and we should get another post. And this time it should take us into the BIOS or tell us we have no bootable device. It took us into the BIOS. We are on BIOS version, can't see it. You guys can see it, I can't see it. F7 for the B560 HD3. So I just want to make sure that's the latest BIOS. And the way I'm going to do that is by simply typing into Google B560 HD3, and the first link that appears should be the motherboard product page from Gigabyte, which it is. And I'll click on that and go to the support options, and under downloads I'm going to scroll down and look for BIOS. That shows there are 8 BIOSes released for this board. The last one being F13. Well, that's a far cry from F7. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my BIOS flash drive. Which I have right here. And I'm going to plug it into the streaming machine here. I'm going to download that BIOS file and extract onto the flash drive, and I have individual videos that show you the details of how to do this, which is why I'm not repeating it here in order to expedite this video through. But be sure you can search my channel for the word BIOS, and I walk you through the process for several different manufacturers. They're all pretty much the same. So I'm going to grab the F13 file and I'm going to go ahead and copy it over to the BIOS flash drive. What makes that a BIOS flash drive is a small 2 gig flash drive I always keep empty, and so the BIOS flash file will be the only file on that flash drive. And I do that so I don't make a mistake by picking the wrong file to flash, although most motherboards will not allow you to flash it with the wrong file. I just want to remove that as being an opportunity. I also don't want to sift through a bunch of files to find the one I'm looking for. This will be the only file on the flash drive, which will make it very easy for me to select it and not make any mistakes. So with that flash drive, I'll go ahead and plug it into any USB port on the back of this computer, and we'll give it a minute for the computer to acknowledge it exists. It sort of initiates or handshakes. With that, we can now go back over to this BIOS. And I need to make my screen bigger so I can see. And we're going to go right over here to the right. It says Q Flash. Update BIOS. Click. There's the BIOS file. Remember, there's only one storage device that's got a format on it. The internal NVMe drive has never been partitioned or formatted. So the only storage device this can read is the flash drive, and that's why it immediately came up as an option. And because there's only one file, I didn't have to pick which file I wanted. It's the only file to pick. So we'll select it. It says, are you sure? I am sure. And then it's going to do this verification to make sure the BIOS is compatible with the motherboard. It says your current flash is F7 and your update is F13. The model is B560HD3. The dates are different, and the checksums, of course, are different for people who want to check the checksum. We don't need to deal with that because we source the BIOS directly from the manufacturer. Checksums are more important when you're questioning the source of the file. And then we just need to leave this alone. Don't touch the keyboard, don't touch the mouse, just leave it be. And within about 3 minutes, it should be done and it should restart. Even when it restarts, it may not be done. It may restart a couple of times depending on the board and the BIOS. You'll notice I didn't have to download BIOS F8, F9, F10, F11, or F12. I'm going from BIOS F7 to the latest F13. They are recursive. It's inclusive. Try to think. Every BIOS has the previous BIOS in it. There are some exceptions, but they would be noted on the motherboard's download page. It may, for example, say, if you want to install this version, you must at least have this other version first. You'll typically see that on AMD boards. You don't often see that on Intel boards. And you'll see we're about 60% through this. Be patient, leave the computer alone, walk away, and you will most likely be successful if you have patience. Okay, just about done here, 94%. This is all being done live, no edits. It's one take in real time. Here again, we just sit and wait, don't touch anything. It reboots on its own, and it should take us back into the BIOS. But it may restart 2 or 3 times all by itself. Don't freak out. That would be normal if it happens. It may not. It may just restart once. Either way, it's okay, and everything is happening like it's supposed to. So if you're just tuning in and you see the Elgato no signal, that's the video output feed of the computer that is in the process of restarting. Since we're capturing the video out, your monitor at home would say no signal if you were doing this to your own computer. When the computer is done processing, it will automatically post again, and you just have to remain patient. Don't press on any keys, don't use the keyboard, do not reset or turn off the computer. I cannot stress that enough. Now, if you're waiting 20 minutes and nothing happens, that would be different. However, so far everything we're seeing here is completely normal. As you can see, it just now posted. That's all in real time. And we're back in the BIOS. Inside the BIOS, we can check our version is in fact F13 now, and we can load the optimized defaults just to make sure. It's always a good idea whenever you update a BIOS to load the optimized defaults and then save and exit. Now it still has nothing to boot to. I'm done with the flash drive and I can remove it, and I can erase the file off of it so it's blank for the next time I need it. When this machine tries to boot, it's got nothing to boot to, so it takes us into the BIOS. At this point, I can take my Windows 10 media installation tool, which I have a video that shows you how to make it free and legally. It's just the product key that you have to pay for. And those you can save a lot of money at with the folks at CDK Deals. A Windows 10 Pro key is less than $16. Once it's activated, it's good for the life of your computer unless you change your motherboard. It's never been a cheaper Windows. I'm so glad that Microsoft has taken the view that Windows is a socket to selling you stuff, a socket to Microsoft services. Microsoft has never made much money on operating systems. They make a ton of money on Microsoft Office. They make a ton of money on a lot of stuff. So as far as Microsoft is concerned, you know, upgrading for free from Windows 7 or Windows 8 to Windows 10 or to Windows 11, they're good with it, because without it, they can't sell you all the stuff they want to sell you. In any event, take advantage using coupon code CARRY at VIP CDK Deals for discounts on Windows 10, 11, Office 2016, 2019, and 2021. All the links are in the video notes below the video. All the products are guaranteed. Please wait until you need to use the product code. Don't buy it because you need to use it in 4 months. The problem is customer service. If you buy something at Best Buy, like a TV, and you stick it in your garage for a month and a half, then you take it out of the box and see the screen is cracked, Best Buy is not likely going to take it back because you've exceeded the return period of time. This is normal with pretty much every sale. So if you want that good customer service, I would recommend you use your product key within 30 days of buying it. If you have any problems, contact the folks at VIP CDK Deals and they will solve the issue. In a rare circumstance where they have not resolved the issue, then please reach out to me with a copy of your receipt from VIP CDK Deals and I will make it right. So there is no risk, there's complete peace of mind, it is totally legal, and there's no reason to be downloading pirated keys or buying keys from shady places with no support and no guarantees. These keys are guaranteed, they do work, and the only issue you might run into is if you ever need to reactivate something. It may or may not reactivate depending on what it is and why you're doing it. And so you won't get any customer support because, again, you're beyond that 30 days at that point. These keys are tied to the motherboard. So as long as you don't change the motherboard, you shouldn't have any reason to ever buy another key. All right, with the Windows 10 USB installed, I'm going to go ahead and restart the computer. I'll just hit the reset button. I need to test the reset button anyway. It works. Now the only thing the computer can boot to is that USB drive. It's the only thing formatted. Again, that internal solid state drive is fresh from the box with no format or partition. It's because, you know, maybe you're going to put Linux on it. Maybe you're going to put it in a Mac. The manufacturer doesn't know why you want it. Maybe it's going to be Chrome OS. So it comes completely blank. And therefore, the system can only boot to the bootable media that we've installed. And we'll go through the same process I always go through when installing Windows 10. You can always rewind this and play it back if I go too quickly. I always choose I don't have a product key, always. But I have to tell it what my product key is for. It's always for Windows 10 Pro. I don't use Windows 10 Home because it's a $2 price difference for me to provide Pro. Home doesn't provide the features my business clients need, and Pro's features that home clients don't need doesn't hurt them to have. So better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So for the price difference, for $2, you know, I just put Windows 10 Pro on it. Universally, without exception. I accept the license agreement, hit next. I always choose custom, always. This is our single drive. If we had multiple drives on this new build, I would only plug in one of them. There's no sense trying to save time. If you've got 4 drives, plugging them all in, that's going to take you more time, not less. Plug in the drive you want to be your boot drive and do not plug in any other drives. Then you're only offered one drive for the installation, so you don't make a mistake and screw it up. And now it's going to partition that drive, format it, and install Windows 10. And while we're waiting, if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to address whatever's on your mind. Let me see if I can put myself up in a corner here. Okay, so this shouldn't take very long. It's a pretty fast install on a modern machine. Kenton Morton says, man, I wish we had those deals a year ago. I bought 12 Office computers with Windows 10 Pro. It cost $2,000 just for Windows. Oh, I know. Believe me, I know. And I was very reluctant to offer these gray market keys because I was very concerned about the legality of it. And I did a lot of research. I asked other content creators who were selling keys what guarantees they had, and they said they didn't have any guarantees. And I said, so if you're ripping off your viewers, how do you sleep at night? And they said, it's not, I don't force my viewers to buy them. It's not my problem. So I didn't want to do that. So I had to find a way that I knew with confidence that it was legal and that the company was legit, had good customer service, and wasn't going to burn my viewers. And I had to be so confident that I would be willing to step in and make it right if they were to do that. And I'm not aware of a single YouTube content creator that does that. So when it comes to having choices for who you want to spend your money with, I hope you'll support the people and the companies that support us here on the channel. It's also for your own peace of mind that you're guaranteed a working key and you will get good customer service. But choose as you will and accept your fate. You want to roll the dice? Roll the dice. Mike Visions contributes 10 pounds. He says, good evening, Carrie and everyone in chat. Just a little something towards any future projects. Just got in from celebrating my other half's birthday. Hey, thank you, Mike, and good day to you. Or good evening, as the case may be. Thank you for supporting the channel. Fernando Prito with a $5 contribution. Thank you, Fernando. Just trying to look through the chat because I have not been paying attention. Looks like our Windows process is already waiting for us to answer a few questions here. So United States. I'm going to say I don't have internet for the reasons I've already explained. For a username, I'm going to say Dave. I don't know what he wants the username to be, but we'll leave the password field blank and he can change all that. I turn all this stuff off except for location setting, and that way the date, time, and time zone can be set automatically and frequently. As time zones change, you won't have to manually deal with that. Everything else I turn off, but again, these can be changed. These settings can all be changed by the customer. And then this is the final stage of the Windows 10 installation, and it's that fast to get us through that Windows 10 install. Andrew said the word I was looking for with regards to each BIOS having the previous BIOS within it is accumulative. Thank you, Andrew. If I could just say that word, that would be great. Accumulative. Channel Zero contributes $5 and asks, what is the difference between gold and platinum efficiency in a power supply? Will it help reduce the electricity cost of ownership? Thank you. It's not an easy question to answer. When you have an office with 100 computers, the power efficiency rating can add up to some real noticeable differences in the electricity costs as well as the cooling costs of the building, because those power supplies, if they're overworked, are generating a lot of heat and eating a lot of power. However, if you have a 1,000-watt power supply and you're only using 400 watts of it at most, your energy efficiency rating goes down the toilet. Gamers Nexus, I think, has a great video explaining all of the caveats, but essentially each tier goes from white to bronze to silver to gold to platinum and titanium. And there might be a few I'm missing. Each one is more efficient than the one before it. And of course, they charge more money for the power supply. Some people will buy the most efficient one because they just feel it's the right thing to do for the earth. But again, you really have to be using, I think it's around 60 or 70% of the actual wattage the power supply can produce to hit that efficiency rating. If you exceed, if you're pushing a 700-watt power supply at 690 watts, it's not as efficient and it generates more heat. Ideally, you'll have about 20-25% more power than you need so that the power supply is not being overworked. These are vague, sort of generalized numbers that I'm giving you. They're not specific. I think you could also look at Wikipedia for more information on the power efficiency ratings or the E+ ratings of power supplies. But thank you for the question and thank you for supporting the channel. Batty Bat Firebrand contributes $20. Says, from one technician by profession to another, have a Coke or Gatorade on me or several. All right, well, that's a great name. Batty Bat Firebrand. Make sure you're blue in here. Appreciate you. We're going to see what else I've missed. I know we can do updates now. We're done with the Windows 10 installation media, so we can unplug it. And now I can plug internet into it. As soon as I do that, once it establishes an IP address from the router, it's going to automatically begin installing updates in the background, and it won't say anything to us that it's doing it. But what will happen is, after I plug it in and I go to Windows Update, some of our updates are going to fail because they're already in the process of being updated in the background. Don't freak out, it's totally normal. But, for that matter, Microsoft doesn't believe you're going to update anyway, so they want to force the updates in the background to protect you from yourself, because too many end users think updates cause problems and won't update, and therefore get the problems the updates fix. It's like not wanting to get the flu shot because you heard it could make you sick, and instead you get sick with the flu. I don't know what people are thinking, but I'm glad Microsoft is being more assertive when it comes to applying the updates. Sorry, I'm trying to make my screen bigger and I keep grabbing the wrong mouse. Okay, so first thing I want to do, this App Center thing, let's close that. I'm going to check don't show that anymore and cancel. And just, I'll say get started just so it initiates this, and it won't ask us anymore. There's like 2 questions it asks here. Complete setup and continue without signing in. That's done, so that won't bother us. And then I'll go to Windows Update and we'll begin the process of installing all of our missing updates since the Media Tool, the version of Windows that the Media Tool has was last updated. We're getting about that time we should see another update for Windows 10. The benefit of using those new updates is they'll have all these previous updates built in. Accumulative. I'm going to use that word again. All right, any last questions? That's pretty much it for today's build. All that remains will be the rest of the updates, the drivers, optimizing Windows 10 with Uncle Kerry's Windows 10 optimization tool, and then some cable management, and it's off to the end user. It's that simple. It's about a $700 build. It'll be very reliable. It's whisper quiet and very easy to work on, very easy to upgrade. You could use this case over and over and over, probably for the next 30 years if you keep it in good shape, unless the ATX standards change. I mean, they haven't in a long time. It's a nice generic looking computer case. It doesn't scream out disco. Doesn't have a bunch of RGB and stuff in it that's going to date it. A lot of this RGB stuff people are building today, you're going to look back on it and shake your head and go, what were they thinking? It's going to be no different than looking at your old high school yearbook photo. It's going to be exactly the same. So by getting just a generic black computer case, it's going to age much, much better. Guaranteed. I can see the video driver just loaded automatically through Windows Update, and it went into 4K mode, which is why everything is so tiny. When you see the screen blank out and come back, that's a video driver being installed. And that'll be something else I install, will be the Intel Driver Assistant, and we'll make sure that, well, for the most part, all our drivers are coming from Windows Update. The Intel Driver Assistant is free, and it'll give us the latest drivers for the Intel SSD, any firmware for the Intel SSD, latest drivers for the Intel video card that could be newer than what Microsoft is distributing, newer drivers for the Intel networking or Wi-Fi if it had that, and it's completely free, so there's no reason to not use it. A-lister Crowley says, thanks for having us, bro. Always a pleasure. Thank you for hanging out with us. Make sure you're blue in here too, my friend. Start recognizing your name. That's a good way to get turned blue. Just looking back through the chat. Any last questions or words of wisdom you'd like to share before we wrap it up for the day? It's exactly 4 o'clock here in Phoenix, Arizona. And that was the time I was wanting to end the broadcast. Usually they go an hour or 6 over because of unexpected events. But when we stick with known products, as I have in this video, you can see just how easy the process can be. As soon as I start messing with unfamiliar products and liquid coolers and RGB, the time goes right out the window. You'll see that time and time and time and time again here. If I was building them over and over and over again, I'd obviously be faster at it, especially if I would be using the same liquid coolers or the same RGB systems, but I very rarely use the same ones twice, and they all have a different process. And so it ends up leading to unexpected obstacles that cause the videos to go well beyond their intended length. And I keep it that way so that you will set your expectations accordingly. I don't want you to think it's as easy as some of these other YouTube content creators will make it seem through polishing and editing. They could spend a month building that video you just watched, or making the video that took you 45 minutes or an hour to watch. It's like an author writing a book. That book might have taken that author a year or 2 years to write it, when you might have read it in a day or two. How many people line up for the next J.K. Rowling? Well, maybe not so much anymore. But the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter books, sometimes J.K. Rowling take 2 years to write one of those books. People line up to get the book, and they read it in 2 days. Ready for the next one. They can consume it way faster than it takes to create it. And so when they do that with videos, you may not fully get the full depth or understanding of the difficulties, the actual difficulties of the process of building the computer. And it's one of the things I like doing by showing it live. I think it gives you a more realistic expectation of how long a BIOS update takes, or how long a motherboard takes to prep, or how long a power supply takes to install. And I think that will help gauge a more realistic expectation, so that when you decide to take it on, it'll match what you've seen online. At least that's my goal. Rick Zabo contributes $5, says, hey Kerry, I've had a rough day at the DMV, but I'm on my return. Found my TP-Link I won on my porch. Yeah, Rick won the TP-Link router. Congrats to you, Rick. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that it provides you with amazing Wi-Fi coverage and internet speeds. And thank you for the contribution. Patrick Russo said, did you hear they're going to eliminate daylight saving time? I believe it starts next year. I know that's been up for vote year after year after year, and they always turn it down. I think Benjamin Franklin was the first person to recommend that, to implement daylight saving time. And I think he was long dead before they actually did it. And now we're trying to get rid of it. I'd say good riddance, but I live in Arizona where we don't observe daylight saving time regardless, so it doesn't change my world at all. Luke Greenia says, it's time for bed. 1 a.m. comes early for work. Wow, you go to work at 1 a.m. He says, thanks for another great stream. Have a great and safe weekend. Well, thank you, Luke. Always good to see you, my friend. There's more Tot. He says, I sent you an Amazon gift card. Hey, let me check that real quick before we wrap things up. I haven't looked at my phone in a while, and I want to give credit to where credit is due. Here we go. Yeah, Mortot sent a $50 Amazon gift card. Thank you so much. And let's see. Oh, here. $10 comes in from STO. Stowe sent in $10, and that catches us up. And another thank you to the list I have of contributors, which again doesn't collect until I hit the tab for viewer activity. But Rick Cezabo, Batty Bat Firebrand, Channel Zero, Mike Visions, Fernando Prieto, Oystein. Oh, I missed Oystein's contribution. Watching us from Norway, contributes 50 Norwegian krona. Copycat with a $3 contribution. Looks like I missed yours too. My apology to Copycat. Thank you, both Oystein and Copycat, for supporting the channel. AC's Drafting with that $50 contribution. More from Channel Zero. David Tracy, Captain Blinsky, Madi Yoel. Thank you to Madi also for his earlier contribution. Mike Quinton and Ian Gooch, Randy Byrne and Tabayo Kuosma. Armando Garcia, One Cav Viper, Boomhauer 100, Wilhelm Gordon, Ryan 1, Full, Mikolaj, Patrick Russo, again from Wilhelm, Channel Zero, and Madi Yoel. Thank you to Stephen Gerzak, Blue Zone, Irving T, Tom K, Bob R, The Greek, Michael Maggs, and Xrod 666. I can't remember who else contributed prior to that, other than, of course, Peter Laycock. Thank you as always. And yeah, I've got to make it a habit to activate this viewer activity tab, or I don't get a record of it. So I was a couple contributions came in earlier today, but I know I did give you a shout out at the time. But I just like to say thank you one last time before I go. Thanks for watching. I hope I will see you all again very, very soon. And until then, bye for now.